This is the RPM Podcast, starring Eric Brennan.
You're talking about a guy who prefers a hot dog over a steak.
Sam Ballard Jr.
Is it cool if I fart in your presence?
Scott Riggleman.
He's not afraid to stick it in.
Tim Riggleman.
There are some who call me Tim.
And Josh Matthews.
Josh, really cool guy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 138 of the RPM Podcast. I'm Eric Brennan. Pleasure to be back with you after a one-week hiatus. So I'm back again, boys, and I was on time tonight. Joining us this evening, we got, of course, driver number 09 Factory Stock from the Edge of the Motorsports Studios, Scott Riggleman. Scott, how's it going?
Good. Everything is good.
We also have one of the busiest spotters in all of modified racing up in the Northeast. Could be very busy next week as well. Scott's brother, Timmy Riggleman. Tim, how's it going, buddy?
Doing great. Can't wait to talk about modified racing this weekend. Can't wait.
We got a lot to look forward to for sure at Wall Stadium Speedway. Also coming to you from the Matthews Family Studios in Waretown, New Jersey, the producer of the RPM Podcast, Josh Matthews. What's up, Josh?
I'm finally dry.
Aren't we all? We also have a very special guest with us here. He is familiar to many of you from Wall Stadium Speedway, made the leap to come down to the Carolinas to make a splash in motorsports, and a lot of you got to see him on the national television scene this past Friday after his driver, Ross Chastain, grabbed the win in the NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series race out at Kansas. It is a huge pleasure to welcome Phil Gould to the RPM Podcast. Phil, how's it going, bud?
Great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
We can't thank you enough for joining us. Also, big thanks to Scott's wife, Nancy, for helping us set this up as well. Now, Phil, many of people up at the New Jersey Speedway at Wall, they knew that you were around there not only as a wrenchman, which is how you started out on the NASCAR side once you came down here in the early 2000s, but also as a racer. So tell us, how did you get your start at Wall Stadium Speedway, and how did that become your home track to get you involved in the world of motorsports?
Well, like a lot of young kids, my dad took me when I was young, probably 5 or 6 years old. And week in and week out, we'd go sit in the grandstands. And as a young kid, I fell in love with it. And as soon as I was old enough to race, I turned 18 on a Sunday. I was racing the following Saturday. But actually, even before that, I built a street stock when I was probably 14 or 15 years old and wasn't old enough to get in the pits. Couldn't drive it. My dad actually drove it. And I remember him telling me, what in the hell are you doing trying to build a car? You're 14 years old. And I said, I'm going to do this. And he told me, he said, I don't think anybody would have an electric chair to sit in a car that a 14-year-old welded up. So that didn't deter me. But when I got the car done, had no way to drive it, I said, hey, Dad, I got this car done. Do you want to drive it? Of course, he was like, oh, yeah, I'll drive it. I reminded him about that. But, yeah, then I started racing as soon as 18. I bought a street stock from Kenny Reeves, and I hung around the Reeves family when I first started racing. They taught me an awful lot about racing and raced street stocks for a couple of years. Raced with Scott a lot, week in and week out. Had a lot of fun. Moved up to pro stock. That got to be at the point of what I could afford and not afford. And then I got hooked up with John Ruggiero. He ended up doing some engines for me, and we got to be friends. And he moved down and worked for Ray Everham, and he convinced me that this is what I needed to try. And I did. I packed up, moved down, just kind of begged for a job here and there. Actually worked for Mike Stefanik, was my very first job on a Busch car way back when. Really showing my age now, how long ago that was.
It's okay. I still call it the Busch Series.
Yeah.
Hey Phil, you just mentioned Kenny Reeves, not to interrupt your story, but do you still talk to Kenny Reeves at all?
Once in a while, yeah. A phone call. If I do get up there to visit, I try to go see him, have dinner with him.
Anyway.
So, Phil, you made the move down. You started working with Mike Stefanik. Now, was that just by chance, or was there a bit of a link there? Because, Mike had a history, mostly on the east side, but he's got some modified history as well. So was there a link there? Did you know when you were coming down you were going to have that opportunity with him?
No, I really didn't have, anything set in stone when I first came down. I kind of just, when I got here, I just went around all the different teams and kind of handed out resumes and just see what I could drum up. And the team that Mike was driving for, they just said, hey, we might be able to use somebody. And they took me in. And that team kind of reminded me a lot of the truck team I work for now. It's just a real small group. Everybody kind of did everything. And I got to learn a lot really fast. So that was good.
What team was that, Phil?
It was Coin Textile Services, CTS Motorsports. It was a number 30 car
or something.
Yes, the number 90. Yeah, it was blue and yellow. Yeah. Yeah, they ran part-time schedule, and then they only ran that 1 year, and then they were out of business. And from there, I actually went to work for Ray. I worked for Ray for 2 years, and then I got an opportunity up at RCR, and I started out as a mechanic in the Busch Series. I started out in the 21. Probably don't remember the Payday car that Kevin Harvick and Johnny Sauter drove.
Oh, I remember that car. I love Paydays.
Yeah, and then it's the only candy bar you can eat and drink a beer with.
That's true.
And from there, I worked on the AC Delco car that Hornaday drove for a year or two. And then when Clint Boyer came along and he started driving the AC Delco car, we did a year doing that. And then I moved up to be the car chief. And then we pretty much the whole team, or all the key people, went cup racing. And then I did that for 5 or 6 years. As a car chief, started with Boyer, kind of flip-flop teams. I ended up with Harvick. And then 2011, that kind of went away, and they switched up teams again, and I was back on the Xfinity side. I really wanted to be a crew chief, and that was kind of the avenue the best avenue to get there. So I spent a year being a car chief again on the Nationwide Series then. And then the following year, Brian Scott came along, and they promoted me to crew chief, and I spent 2 years doing that. From there, I left and went to Roush and with Elliott Sadler, and that only lasted a year. And Elliott went to JRM, and then they put me with Ryan Reed for the past 3 years. And then, the Xfinity program kind of dried up at Roush and left me looking. And I came across this opportunity, a guy named Cody Efaw that I used to work with at Roush. He kind of helped start this truck team and general manager, and he called me up and said, "Hey, I'm not sure what you're doing, if you want to go truck racing or not, but I got Ross Chastain, and he's going to drive a lot of these races." And I was like, Ross Chastain, I think I'll give that a try. And I've had a lot of fun. It's a lot different than obviously working at a big team. When I worked at Roush, I spent a lot of time sitting in meetings and doing a lot of other stuff and didn't really touch race cars. And it's kind of the total opposite now. I spend 90% of my time working on trucks and about 10% doing other stuff, but having a lot of fun. And we've started the year off with a little bit of success, so that always makes it better.
For any of you kids listening that want to make a living in NASCAR, the moral of Phil's story is pretty much don't burn any bridges. See how many teams he's worked for and how many people that brought him on to the next team and introduced him to the next person. Pretty much you got to keep your options open down there and just keep in touch with everybody, because you never know where you're going to land down there.
Oh, yeah. And you never know who you're going to cross paths with again. And that's just true, Scott. I always try to not burn a bridge and because you never know what could happen.
I was just going to ask, when, like you said, when the Xfinity or Nationwide program dried up at Roush, and then right before you moved to Nice, I mean, when something like that happens, is it a panic thing for you, or is it like, okay, I'm just going to look and something will come up? I mean, how does that work on your end?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't panic at first. It was like right after Homestead, right after Thanksgiving when that all went away. And, I had a lot of talks with a lot of different stuff through the month of December, and then things kind of looked like things were drying up. Then I started to panic a little bit.
Okay.
And then Cody called me, which, the truck deals are very race to race. They happen late. And, it was probably the middle of January when he called me. When we got that put together. So, yeah, I didn't really panic at first, but I started to after a while.
Wow.
Just out of curiosity, I know a lot of these smaller teams down there, they end up in like somebody's old race shop or something like that. And I always like to hear the history, or like where your race shop is, and maybe if it was a bigger team's shop at one time.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, the building that we're in is the old Everham building that I worked in almost 20 years ago.
See, that's why you don't burn bridges or buildings.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that I was like, man, this building, I worked in here almost 20 years ago.
Shannon Connor has very similar stories. He's like, dude, I can't get rid of that Melling shop. Like, he started, his first job was down there with Mellon Racing, and every time he got hired on by another team, they're like, oh yeah, we're renting out the Melling shop. He's like, yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah, I guess there's only so many race shops they're not building anymore. They just kind of get passed around.
Now, Phil, your first win as a crew chief was not, in fact, this past Friday. It was actually at Daytona in the season opener back in 2017, as you mentioned, with your stint with Ryan Reed. Now, granted, Ryan also won there in 2015, but at that time you were with Elliott Sadler.
Right.
That win, was it that moment that kind of justified you taking the leap to move south, or did you not even need that moment, or was that the icing on the cake? What did that moment mean to you, especially considering, the chance that you kind of took on yourself in getting uprooted from, back home in Jersey to come down here for a shot at a career in motorsports?
Oh, it meant a lot. You know what I mean? I think had I, my stint in Xfinity, had I never won a race, you know what I mean? I would always have that in the back of my mind, feel like I didn't accomplish a goal. So winning that race, it meant a lot. It was a big deal.
I think Eric was asking for a friend, shall we say, right? Right, Eric?
Yeah. We're in a similar situation, just different facets of motorsports work. But now, you go to Friday, which 7th race of the calendar year for the Truck Series, and Ross originally slated to kind of split driving duties with Reed Wilson. I know Reed made a couple starts in the second truck, but Ross has been phenomenal in that entry. Is a lot of that based on the chemistry that you two have? Even though you guys have a lot less time to work together than, say, a Cup Series team would, and also with Ross being spread rather thin at his own doing with his willingness to drive pretty much anything, you guys got a good rapport going, and do you think that led to the success you guys had on Friday?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it just, like both him and I, our last deals didn't really go all that well. It kind of ended bad. So I feel like I had a lot to prove. He's got a lot to prove. And, we clicked right away. He's kind of like me. He's kind of quiet and reserved and just gets the job done. And kid has just got an extreme amount of talent. I mean, you guys can see, it's amazing some of the stuff he does, man. It's just pretty awesome.
Well,
back-to-back weeks with incredible saves did Ross have, not only also getting the win. And Phil, you actually led to my next point. Seeing how the deal, with Roush and that Xfinity team virtually dissolving at the end of 2018, also seeing what happened to Ross, I see that as a form of continuity. Even if it's unspoken, it seems as though that you both kind of being in the same position and kind of having to go through the same unfortunate series of events, kind of galvanizing. And I mean, it was so evident in the emotion, not only from Ross, but also from you after the win on Friday. And I guess, is it the road that you two have had to travel on that made that win that much sweeter?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? It's just, when things don't end well and you've had a tough couple of years, you always want to prove yourself and not feel like you were a failure. And also too, just this deal here is just such a small team. And we had to work a lot of hours early on in the year to get things going. I mean, we only had probably 6 or 7 full-time employees to start the year, and trying to run 2 teams. And it was just really a lot of long days and nights, Saturdays and Sundays to get going. And so when you work that hard and you really trying to achieve a goal like that, and you finally do, it just it can get emotional, I guess the best way to put it.
Now you say you have 6 or 7 full-time employees. Now, as a crew chief, do you hire those people, or were they already hired when you got there?
A couple of them were there when I got there. I mean, we've added a couple of people since there. With when True North came on board, financially that allowed us to hire a few more people, so it's a little better now. And actually, a lot of guys on my team are kind of similar to me. They've kind of been around the block a little bit. Probably worked for a big team. And through the downsizing kind of fell by the wayside. And so we actually have a really good group of people on our 45 truck.
And that is the cool thing. If you do have money to start a NASCAR team now, you can hire some really, really good people because they're available right now. There's such great talent out there looking for jobs still.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I first moved down here, it seemed like there was more jobs than there was qualified people. And now it kind of peaked and it's on kind of decline, and now there's probably more good people than there is jobs. So yeah, and that's definitely true.
How many trucks do you have in your stable?
We have 5, including a speedway truck. So yeah, we have 3 that we've kind of rotate around and run.
That's another question I like to ask. I like to know the history of the chassis and where they come from, because a lot of times, these small teams buy like trucks from a big team that closed up. Do you have newer trucks, or were they raced somewhere else before you got?
The 3 like downforce trucks we have, one is a newer truck that they bought from GMS at the end of last year. And the other two that we run, one is an old KBM truck that we updated with a new body and new front clip. And then the third one is actually an old Turner Scott truck that we did the same to it. Yeah, some of these trucks are pretty old.
Like if someone was to get to start a truck team, where do you buy the chassis from now? I mean, I've been out of it a little while down there. I mean, we used to buy them from like BSR and Hutchinson Pagan and all those guys. Where do you buy them from now?
Ortec, or it used to be Laughlin. They sell chassis. KBM, they'll sell chassis.
From KBM, can you buy one even though you're not a Toyota team?
Yeah. There's a lot of KBM chassis trucks with Chevy or Ford bodies on them. Yeah, they're pretty much open to the public with their chassis business.
Wow, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah,
he's also building late models and stuff too, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep, I believe so.
Now, Phil, you've had the opportunity to work for some really well-known car owners across the NASCAR board, and I think we are in the beginning stages of perhaps seeing the same thing for Al Neese. I was actually struck by the fact that, and I saw Jeff Gluck tweet this out shortly after you guys took the checkered flag. Al apparently started this race team due to the leftover funds in his IRA account. And he initially wanted to call it IR Racing. And he also wanted to be the driver. I mean, that sounds like somebody whose heart and soul is purely into everything you guys are doing. Being a small team, you probably get to interact with Al pretty often, I would assume. Is that the case? Is Al really a true racer's racer and just kind of the best kind of owner that you could get to work for because of that?
Absolutely. I mean, he was just racing for fun. I mean, when he got into this, that's a true story that, he took his retirement money and he actually wanted to drive himself. And I guess he figured out that wasn't going to work out too well. And I mean, he puts a lot of his own money into it, and he just likes going to the racetrack and racing. And I think last year, if you told him he was going to win a race 7 races into the next year, he probably would have said you're crazy. But it's just having guys like him are few and far between that want to put their own money into it and just for the fun of it, really. And Al, he comes around. He lives in Austin, Texas, but he'll come to the shop probably once or twice a month, and he's at the racetrack every week. And he's just having a ball. He was super excited the other night, obviously, and he's asking us again. He's like, "All right, we're going to go to Charlotte and do this again, right?"
Wow.
Well, I don't see why you couldn't. I think you guys can go to Charlotte and do it again.
Absolutely.
Now the Truck Series had some long breaks in the beginning portion of their schedule. Now you guys have a quick 7-day turnaround to get ready for Charlotte. It's another intermediate track, so as Scott alluded to just a short while ago, it's not like you guys have another intermediate chassis like 100% on the ready to go. Are you guys kind of limited on celebration time for this win because you got to turn around so quickly for what will be a hometown race for you? But is the pressure still on? You guys back to putting long hours in the shop already, getting ready for Charlotte this Friday?
Oh yeah, we were right back to work this morning. Actually, the truck that we're racing in Charlotte, we took to the wind tunnel today. So that made it a tighter turnaround. Luckily, like you said, we had that month off, and the 3 trucks that we had, we were able to prep them for these 3 races in a row. So it's not too bad. Luckily, Ross has done a heck of a job of not only running well, but he hasn't torn the trucks up. So that helps a ton when you can come home and turn them around, and you don't have to put sides or a body and whatever else it might need. That's been a big help also.
Now, I wanted to ask, having a win now under your belt with this, you'll see, obviously that'll help with sponsors and maybe attract more people coming in, plus a larger purse. How long before that kind of enters the picture, from the win till you start maybe seeing that reflect in, the product that you put out down in future races?
I mean, it's pretty much already happened. I mean, the way we started the year off, there was already a lot of people calling, wanting to run races. It's very few and far between that, people that come along with money that want to run a whole season. But, this guy, he wants to run 5 races. This one might want to run 7 races. And then, so that, that's a good situation because you can pick and choose. Like, when we started the year, we really didn't have anybody to run the races that Ross can't run. There's 4 that he's not allowed to run, and there's an additional 2 that he can't run because he's running for Xfinity points.
Right.
And then so we've been actually be kind of picky, choosy who we're going to put in for those races, and that's when Kyle Benjamin came along. with funding also. So not only do we have a good driver to put in there for the races that Ross can't run, he's also bringing a little bit of money, which just allows us to upgrade our equipment, build a new truck, and so on and so on.
And how much of that goes into like the R&D, for like you're talking about going to the wind tunnel and things like that?
Luckily, Chevrolet has come on and gave us a bunch of support. So Chevy provides the wind tunnel time for us. Also, engineering support. That's been a big help too. We talked that we have a small team, but still there's a certain amount of things you have to be able to run well. And Chevy has stepped up and gave us a lot of support. So we appreciate that.
That's actually pretty cool. I've always wondered about that, but this is one of the few opportunities you ever get to find out, the behind the scenes end of, like we talk about turnarounds and where the sponsor money goes and everything like that. Eric, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, Phil, I understand that, racing is considered to be a sport that can be passed on from generation to generation. Happen to see the name Gould at Millbridge Speedway quite often. So tell us about that. It looks like you got your little ones involved in the sport as well. And that's been, I'm sure, you spent a lot of time at the short track with them, just as you did when you were younger.
Yeah, absolutely. My oldest son, Matthew, he's 13. He started racing go-karts out of Millbridge when he was 6. And kind of like me, that he kind of bit the bug bad, or the bug bit him bad. And, I have a lot of fun doing that, taking him racing. He's a quick learner. He caught on quick. I guess I try not to be overbearing with him, because I don't know, when it's your own kid, you kind of like you push him and want him to do well. And I tried to not make it not fun for him by being too serious. But he really loves it. He watches all the races. When we've kind of moving away from the go-karts a little bit, we got an Allison Legacy car. Once I figured I was truck racing and had some time off on the weekends, that was kind of like the next step. It was, he's growing out of go-karts. It was either like a Legends car or something like that. And the Allison Legacy series is pretty popular around here in the local tracks. So we bought one, we went and tested, and probably I think in about June 1st, Caraway will probably be his first real race.
What are those cars like, the Allison Legacy cars? I'm not.
They're real similar to a Legends car, except they're more like to scale to a late model. It's like a 3/4 scale late model. They have a 4-cylinder Mazda engine, little mini quick change. They have coilovers, but like all the suspension is fixed. Like you really can't, move points around or stuff like that. The engine's sealed, and all the parts, spec parts you buy through them. So it's real similar to a Legends car. It's just more like a mini late model.
Okay, I like that. We lost Scott Riggleman for a minute. He sent us a message that the power went out at his house. Fantastic time, of course. But he'll be signing back on once he gets power back on. Anyway, now, Phil, your father, I believe, is Rich, correct?
Yes.
And he's down in Florida?
Yep.
Okay, I've seen him on the message boards for quite some time, and but everybody loves the Wall Stadium message board. That's
Oh yeah.
There's nothing silly ever going on there, right, Eric?
I stay far away from that stuff, man. I got 99 problems, and that ain't one. So, so now, Phil, you can show ahead. Now, do you guys have a solid schedule, I assume, for when Ross will be in the truck and when whenever he won't be able to make it? And
yes.
Actually, I just want to ask you, how fun is it to work with a driver who will seemingly literally drive anything?
It's a lot of fun. I mean, he's just happy to be racing. You know what I mean? He's just a super nice, laid back guy. He's a blue collar guy like all of us. I mean, he grew up, farming watermelons. So he's worked all his life, and he's just happy to be racing.
Yeah,
now, for you, Phil, we talk about Ross trying to work himself back up into, perhaps an additional opportunity. Absolutely not take anything away from what you guys have going right now at Nice Motorsports, because it is incredible. What's long-term goal for you? Continue to be a crew chief in the top 3 series for, as long as you can? Is there a greater vision for you in your racing career, as you've already accomplished so much in a short period of time since taking that leap?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that. I really, I didn't really have a hard time, going from Xfinity to truck racing. Some people look at it as a step down. But to be honest, as long as I've been doing it, I really like the schedule. There's a lot more time off, a lot more time I can spend with my kids. I'd love to be, winning Cup crew chief. But if that doesn't happen, I'm perfectly content, doing what I'm doing and riding out my career that way.
I like that. I just had a question and then it totally slipped my mind. Eric, ask another one quick.
Well, not the filibuster, but Phil, one more thing I want to ask you about the truck schedule, since you kind of alluded to it. A lot of talk about fans, maybe even team owners, kind of wishing that as NASCAR looks to maybe overhaul the schedule, not just for the Cup side, but even for the Xfinity and Truck Series as well, that it kind of goes back to what it was. A lot of short tracks, maybe some of them even more local to some of the teams that are based in the Concord, Mooresville, or Charlotte area. Is that something you would like to see, being that, you kind of grew up around the short tracks as well, like such as Wall Stadium Speedway? Do you want to see the series kind of go back to that, or do you kind of like where it is now?
No, absolutely. I would love if we had more short tracks on the schedule. Like if the trucks didn't go to Daytona or Talladega, that would be A-OK with me. I was telling somebody the other day that during speed weeks, the trucks ought to be at New Smyrna and not running the big track, because it's usually just a demo derby, and that's not a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I felt like when they first made that shift in 2000, that the truck series had an aerodynamic package that made it work. And then as they started to put a tapered spacer on, it just produced a crapshoot of Russian roulette, and that can't be fun for small budget teams, not just for for Nice, but for any team. So,
yeah, you have to build a specialized truck, for 2 races, and then you spend all that time and money, and all it really matters for is qualifying, in the race. The draft, those trucks, they punch such a big hole in the air that anybody can draft, and keep up in the pack. And then usually you end up getting wrecked anyway. So you're building a very expensive truck that you can only run twice, and then usually it ends up getting destroyed anyway.
Well, go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, it's so exciting to watch, but at the same time, like you said, it's such a crapshoot, and you're putting. The odds of getting into a wreck and destroying the car are so high. I love watching it as a fan. I hate watching it as a driver.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember all the protect your melon things down at Dover, and I remember Ross mentioned the watermelons are great in his Victory Lane speech the other night, and I have to say, he got very emotional, as you mentioned. With it. I thought there several times during that interview he was going to break down into tears. So elated. And then right after that, they were interviewing you, and you were just as excited. And it's just one of those things. I know a lot of guys here, we're pulling for Friesen as well. After seeing him run modifieds and everything. But at the same time, there's such a feel-good thing to see you guys get that win and just be so elated in the interview. I think you got a lot of people very happy. I think we would say.
Well, Phil, yeah. I'm sorry, buddy. You can go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's just you talk about Stewart. It's just like. A win's a win. You'll take them when you can get them, but I hate to win one at somebody else's misfortune. And it seems like that guy, man, he's led so many laps and so many races and just hasn't been able to close it out yet. Man, I feel for him.
Well, I bet you're saying his day's coming soon, but although they're saying that about Bowman as well, I think. So we'll see what happens.
One thing, like when you move, you grew up here racing here, you moved down south. Like any of your conversations with people, they ask you where you're from, and you say Wall Stadium, and they would have a story about Wall Stadium from like a guy that you wouldn't think even knew what Wall Stadium was or where it was.
Yeah, I think thanks to Ray paving the way, a lot of people have heard about it, and people when they hear about it, then they go and look and see, and Wall is such a unique track. It puts on good racing, and a lot of people, I think, pay attention. And then, it's just ends up being a good conversation piece, I guess, anyway.
Yeah, it's good. Good. Do you have do you still like to think you build a street stock or a late model for yourself at any point and race down there?
I'd love to, but I mean, I probably that was probably pretty high on my list until my son started racing, and then when he started racing, to be honest, I have just as much fun taking him racing as I did racing myself. And when I grew up racing, I didn't, I didn't have a lot, and if I can help him and give him all the stuff that I didn't have, and help him progress his career further along, if that's what he wants to do, then I'm happy with that.
Awesome. And one question we ask everybody: what's your favorite track food, and what track?
I would have to say probably, and the trucks, they're going back next year, but they haven't, is Richmond.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I just always like that track and the racing that it puts on. It's cool that the modifieds get to go back there and get to see that. But it's just I don't know. It's just something about Richmond. It's always been my favorite track.
Cool.
What? I was just going to say, did they have any good food there?
It's getting better. And when I first moved down here, I was probably the biggest thing that I had to come to grips with. I was like, man, the food down here is not what it is back home. But I think more and more people are moving down here, so the good food is coming down this way.
Good.
So
You can't get pork roll down there now, so it's not so horrible.
Yes, you can. Yes.
Just stay away from the boiled peanuts. It would be Scott's recommendation.
Yeah. Have you tried liver mush since you've been down there?
No.
Oh, God.
No. And I don't plan to.
That makes two of us.
Oh.
Phil, we can't thank you enough, man. Congratulations. It's really cool to see a guy from, I want to say back home, even though you moved down before I started announcing at Wall, so I haven't had a chance to meet you personally. But if you're ever in the downtown Charlotte area and you want to grab some paydays and beers, give me a shout, and I'll be around.
Sounds good. And thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully you go up to Charlotte, grab another one. We'll have you back next week.
Sounds good.
All right. Have a good
Once
one.
again,
Take care, guys.
Phil Gould, the winning crew chief for Ross Chastain in the NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series this past Friday at Kansas. And as he stated, they on a quick turnaround, now trying to get ready for the race at Charlotte Motor Speedway this coming Friday, where Ross will be back in the truck and surely will be a threat to win. A couple of notes, as Josh mentioned, we did in fact lose Scott Riggleman. It appears he had a power failure. Of course, it would happen on a Monday night after 8 p.m. when we'd elect to record this podcast. He was very excited to talk to Phil. I'm glad he had an opportunity to get a couple questions in, but I'm sure that Scott would have provided a lot more interesting context, being that, Scott and Phil both are the bare bones racers that Wall Stadium Speedway seems prone to being able to build. And however, we apologize for the technical difficulty on Scott's end. I also want to apologize because I have been kind of getting harassed by my dog Chase, and he has been squeaking his ball next to me this entire time, trying to get me to play with him. And if that interrupted anybody's listening abilities with this podcast, I am truly sorry.
I thought I heard something.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he broke the skin when I was trying to take it away from him, but nevertheless, really cool to have Phil on. I always knew who he was. I knew the name. I knew that he came from up north. I knew he cut his teeth at Wall Stadium. But to actually get a chance to talk to him, especially at the success he had, and that's the interesting thing. If you follow his career timeline and you look at all the major teams that he bounced from, a lot of his stint was at Richard Childress Racing. When you look at some of the names and organizations that he competed with, even though I didn't get to see Phil in during that period of time, and obviously he was in a car chief role, so a lot of the television credit and camera work goes towards the crew chief. It looks like he's having a lot of fun, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Like, even though it's a small team and they're getting the results, it appears he's having a really, really good time.
I think it comes back to the small teams are more like you, me, and Josh working in the garage. It's not work.
Yeah,
you go to these big places.
Exactly.
You got to sign up. They want to know how long you take for lunch, the whole 9 yards. It's more serious, but that's corporate America for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so many people from, I don't want to say just New Jersey, but from the Northeast that work down there. You would be surprised how many people from Wall Stadium alone work in those shops that you don't hear about. There's many people down there from here.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, and And there's a lot of people who I just kind of encourage, like they have that itch to go racing. And I mean, you could live up in the Northeast and make a career in racing. It's a little bit harder. You're not really in the mix. You're not within an arm's length of all these race shops and these teams, and not just the major ones, but even like, the Nice Motorsports team. I try to encourage people to take the chance. I actually wish I did it sooner, but nevertheless, I'm here and hopefully we'll make something of it.
Yeah, you're an old fart now.
I know, I'm getting old. Getting old quickly. So we touched on the Truck Series event with Phil. Let's kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series event at Kansas. If you didn't get a chance to catch the race, it was probably one of the better mile-and-a-half shows that we have had in a while. I think if you
That's what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah, I think if you exclude the Chicagoland race last year, and that's some people dub it as the slot job race between Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson. If you exclude that, I think it was the best mile-and-a-half race that we had in a while. However, I think we're getting into muddy waters because it is late, not late in the season. We're about halfway through the regular season. And this is the first time that we've seen the result that I think NASCAR was looking for with this package. And there were a lot of elements that made that so. Very cool temperatures in Kansas. In fact, when the race started, it was 58 degrees, a really cool, I want to say Midwestern evening it was in Kansas. And also the race was held at night. It was under the lights.
Any
a lot of people are expecting. So, no, we did have a tornado warning here, though. We got some terrible weather in the Charlotte area on Saturday. And I think it kind of migrated north just in time that features began at Wall. And we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
But, Tim, I know you were I assume you were at Wall Stadium Speedway. Oh, no, you were at Stafford, weren't you?
Yes, Saturday night. We were on our way home Saturday night from Stafford, yeah.
So I'm not sure if you had a chance to watch the Cup race, but you've been following along with a lot of that closely. And we talked about some of the comments that were made by Kyle Busch a few weeks back about this package itself. I don't know if you got to see any highlights.
You know what? I know what you're asking me. I like the racing the way it's been. I think it's been okay. From Talladega on, I thought it was good. I thought Talladega was a good race. Mm-hmm. People cry when they get all strung out, and then people cry when they're all bunched together and they can't pass each other. And you can't make anybody happy. But I think the racing's been fine. Kyle Busch is gonna, he's gonna piss and moan when he wants to, but that's what he does. Yeah. It'll just make him race harder next week. And I guess he had some kind of altercation at the end of this week. A fender or something got pushed in or something. He got put to the back or something.
Yeah, that consecutive streak of top tens, which he had actually tied with Morgan Shepherd, is going to stay at that point for now because he was trying to make a pass on the front stretch, and it looked as though he got together with his teammate Eric Jones and Clint Boyer, and that did push the fender in, forcing him to pit road, thus ruining that top 10 streak, at least for now. Josh, did you have a chance to catch the Cup race? And if you did, or did you see highlights or anything, your thoughts on the product overall?
Well, it wasn't bad. There were some a lot of wiggly guys out there. That's my technical term. Well, I mean, they're messing around with the air. A few cars got pretty squirrely. There was some passing. There was a lot of moving around. I thought it was a decent race. To be fair, I was exhausted. We did a Mother's Day thing on Saturday instead of Sunday, and my dad ended up staying over and hanging out and watching the race. I fell asleep somewhere during the final stage. So, I mean, it was exciting, but not exciting enough for my eyelids. But, yeah.
I mean, I think overall I couldn't look away. Haley and I ended up spending the night in because Bowman Gray got rained out again, and she happened to be off from work. So we ended up spending the night in, and it was to a point where she was on the computer doing something, and she couldn't even look away because the cars were really close together, especially in the second half of that final stage. Kevin Harvick had the dominant car, but had to make a green flag pit stop. He thought something was wrong with the right front. It turned out that it was a windshield tear-off that actually ended up laying on the grill opening, which was utilized to cool the right front tire. So that made him feel this uncomfortable sensation that he hadn't had all day, and it forced him to pit. It turned out there was nothing wrong with the right front tire or with the right front suspension. It was just the fact that tear-off hit the right spot on the grill opening to disrupt the handling of that car so drastically to make him pit. I've never seen that before. Not sure if you guys have, but that was a first for me.
So
it's happened. It's happened before.
I was gonna say, is that part of the product of this whole package and high downforce, and that this can affect it, or?
Oh yeah, they have every. Look at when they go out for practice or time trials, and they take an inch piece of tape off, and it makes a difference. Those cars are so aerosensitive that, especially if they have a duct that's completely closed off, that's got to cool something down, they're all done. That's it.
Oh yeah,
you got to get that off.
I'd say, now that bothers me about the any package is if that much can disrupt everything and ruin your day or make your day, I want to have a little tolerance for some fender damage and things like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, those days are over as far as that goes. They don't even give them time to fix the cars anymore. If you wreck, what is it? You got like 60 seconds to fix it or something like that.
Like 6 minutes or something. Yeah. But, other than Martinsville and maybe Bristol, the aero is such a big deal. And then you can kind of get away with it at, the super speedways only because, you can get shoved around or be right in the draft of it all. But otherwise, especially these mile and a halves, are so dependent on the aero. But, the package is working out to provide better racing. It's, just doesn't make me happy. I don't know. I think it's better. I'm just impossible to please. I want to be one of those keyboard warriors.
Yeah. Oh, the racing's better right now, so let's go with that, and hopefully it gets a little better.
After Harvick's problems, there was an ensuing number of restarts, which were just insane. And then Brad Keselowski somehow kind of cycled his way up to the front after not really being a factor throughout most of the night. In fact, I saw Jim Utter tweet about 2/3 of the way through the race. Where are the Penske Fords? Because Ryan Blaney struggled all day. Joey Logano kind of stalled out about 15th. And Keselowski somehow found his way to the front, did not have the lead in the latter stages. In fact, it was Alex Bowman, who Mike Joy passed off the stat during the television coverage. He has finished in every other finishing position, 2nd through 40th, except first. And he was about, say, 10 laps or so away from being able to pull off that first win. Instead, he had to settle for his third second-place finish in a row. It was Keselowski the winner. Bowman was second. Eric Jones ended up in third, but not without some drama. Chase Elliott, who also had a really strong car in the middle portion of the race, finished fourth. And Clint Boyer, the hometown driver in Kansas, rounded out the top 5. Jimmy Johnson got another Chevrolet up into the top 10 in 6th.
Wow, that's a decent finish for him, isn't it?
Very strong. In fact, the Chevys flexed a lot of muscle now looking at the results. Even though they didn't get the win, they still populated the top 10 mightily. Johnson was 6th, Kurt Busch 7th, Kyle Larson 8th, Tyler Reddick in only his 2nd ever Cup start. My buddy Byron, one of the engineers on that car, finished 9th, outdrove the other 2 RCR drivers who were full-time. Really strong performance by Reddick, who's got some momentum on his side. And Chris Buescher also rounded out the top 10. Some notables here. After Harvick's problem, he finished 13th. Wall Stadium native, I want to say Martin Truex Jr. was 19th. Ryan Preece was in 25th spot when the checkered flag fell. And as Timmy Riggleman alluded to earlier, Kyle Busch, who ended that top 10 streak, came home in 30th. We mentioned some drama with Eric Jones. It was actually with Clint Boyer. After they took the white flag, Jones threw a rather aggressive block on Boyer. Boyer gave him a bit of a shot, but he said in a post-race interview he didn't want to wreck him in front of the field. It looks as though with this package, blocking is going to be part of it. And now, Josh, you as a former racer in the factory stock division, which is ultra competitive, if you have a break in momentum and a driver behind you has a run, is blocking something that's second nature in a stock car, or is that a racing etiquette move?
I think for me, it was always, you hold your line and, the preferred line is going to be down on the inside. So I'm going to stick there. I'm going to make the other guy work to get around me. I'll give him room. I'm not going to run right up there and try to get in his way. But I'm going to make it, I'm going to make him take the long way.
So I now hear what I think blocking's become more where it's okay to do, but I don't agree with that. I don't like it when they do that. But if you're going to do it and you get taken out in the last lap, don't come in and cry in your interview that you got taken out. You blocked the guy. It's your fault. He just didn't lift. I don't like the blocking. I think you should hold your line and and you're going to get past. The guy sets you up, you're going to get past, you're going to get past. If you flat out block the guy and you get taken out, don't cry about it. That's what I would say.
I was going to say, yeah, if you're going to make that move to block, be prepared to be hit.
Yeah, I think you should be knowing who you're blocking. Like, if you're going to block Kyle Busch, you're going to get taken out. If you're at Wall Stadium and it's a lap to go and you're going to try to block Jimmy Blewett, you're getting taken out. You know what I'm saying? Don't cry about it on Facebook the next day.
That's a sneak preview to this weekend, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Timmy, that led to my next question for you as a spotter. Modifieds qualify for this as well. Do you ever have to tell your driver, okay, like guys coming outside, go up and block them, or is that pretty much usually in the driver's hands?
I don't ever say block him. I'll say, he's coming on the outside. If he pulls up on him, then he chose to block him. There are spotters that do tell you got to block the guy, but I don't do that. The guys I spot for are more professional than that. If they're going to block them, they're going to block them on their own. It's not for me to tell them to do that. I'll tell them that he's on the outside or he's getting a run. Say if he's on the bottom of the outside row's going better than the bottom row, I'll tell him, the outside row is rolling. We try to get up in there, but we don't never try to block anybody. It's kind of harder to block somebody in an open wheel modified than it is a full feathered late model. So
that is true. That is indeed true.
I suck that he tries to get up in there.
Now, we also saw a return to single-car qualifying back at Dover, and it continued on over to the race at Kansas. Josh, that kind of brought me to my next question. I was just curious. I did listen to your guys' episode last week, but maybe seeing it at a different track like Kansas, which, they were pretty much wide open 100% of the time on their single qualifying lap. Just want to know your guys' thoughts as we continue to watch single-car qualifying make its comeback, per se.
All right, I'm going to take this one first because I have lots of opinions. All right. Well, I actually because Tim Catalfamo had talked about it on his NASCAR Today show, and it was one of those things. After I listened to it, I was like, I even commented on it. I disagree on the qualifying thing. The single car qualifying because all right, I admit that qualifying is not the show. If you're going to go and buy tickets, you're going to see the race, not qualifying. But maybe it's simple and easier for the redneck race fans to follow single car qualifying, but
shots fired.
It's not as exciting. Now, was there a problem with group qualifying when they started playing the games and stuff, and then nobody got out to make a lap? Yeah, that was a problem. I think that it could have been tweaked to say that you have to at least complete, 5 laps or something like that, and and I don't want it to be the Formula One style where one person gets in the way of your flying lap and screws you up, and then you don't get another chance at it. I like Scott's idea of 25 lap heat races. They were doing heat races in the Xfinity series for a little while, and I think that was working. That would be, for me, the ultimate solution would be some heat races. Give them something to go for. Make them fight for it. Then they're not playing these little stupid mind games on pit road.
But as much as I'd like to see heat races, that would be awesome. But they're gonna rip apart hundreds of thousands of dollars for a heat race. Where it really, with the charter system, it really doesn't make a difference anyway. They might as well just pull numbers out of the hat at that point. You know what I mean?
That would be more exciting than single car qualifying, if you ask me.
Yeah, we were born and raised on single car qualifying. The modified tour, up until a certain point, did every week. Even at Wall Stadium, they do it. It's it's better. Like I said, you won't wreck your car. Is it more boring? Yeah, but for local racing, people know they're going to qualify time trials at 6, race at 7. They don't get there to 7. I think what your point was with the upper thing, and when they're on TV. And it's qualifying, and you turn the TV on, and it's qualifying. Yes, it is boring to watch.
That's the thing; there's televising it, and
that's right. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Yeah,
if you're going to televise it, you might want to make it, not time to have a beer and fall asleep. I don't know. I mean, yeah, grab your paydays and whatever, but I
understand.
I don't want to sit there, and I'm not gonna. I will watch almost anything else than single car qualifying on TV because there's
And
nothing.
as far as you were talking about the debacle about the dual car, whatever you call it, the multi-car qualifying, they should they should just make a rule. You either sit in your pit stall or you're rolling. There's no pulling out and parking and waiting to go out. You either got to sit there and go out and then go right out. There's no sitting there with all that blocking and everything that they were trying to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it could have been tweaked and handled, but they wanted to revert and try to please the fans. And I don't know, people. I don't know why, but they seem happy with the single car qualifying. I guess they're just.
They were growing. Most of the people are used. That's what they're used to. And Uncle Scott's back. If you didn't see.
Yeah, I'm back on.
I just think maybe the fans are too dumb to follow more than one car at a time. That's.
Oh, good thing you're not a PR person for NASCAR.
Scott, glad you're back.
Eric couldn't get away. From that fast enough.
Scott, just got to join in the conversation. We're just kind of touching on single car qualifying again. I know it's something you guys talked about last week, but we saw it play out at Kansas. Guys pretty much seem to be wide open throughout most of it. Just curious what your thoughts are in seeing that kind of make a return to Cup Series action and also across all the top 3 series.
I mean, I like it better than the group qualifying, but I'm with Josh. I'd love to see heat races. I mean, if there's 40 cars show up, you split the field to 20 in each, make it like a 25-lap heat race, just like they do on, sometimes up this way. Whoever wins the first heat race is on the pole. Whoever wins the second heat race is on the outside pole. And, the second heat race is the outside row, and the first heat race finishing order is the inside row, and let's go racing.
But then how, again, would you determine who was in what heat race? The top 20 cars just in practice going
pick
one?
out of the hat. Pick out of the hat. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bit old school, I guess, and I'm kind of happy that the single car stuff is back. The problem I think we have is, and this is something that's been touched on a lot, is I remember the days when I would watch in the late 90s and early 2000s, the Cup cars, like the 600s coming up in a couple of weeks. They qualify on a Thursday night. You'd see some guys step over the edge and wreck their car going for it. I feel like the cars right now are so planted, they cannot wreck by themselves. They're not on the edge enough. And I don't know how they're going to try to get back to that. It sounds like this week's All-Star race, they're going to try something new that may be a component for the for the Gen 7 car that's going to be coming out. Maybe that'll push us towards that direction. I mean, the amount of side force and just how planted these cars are kind of takes some of the thrill out of the, for lack of a better term, balls to the wall approach that qualifying used to be. And now it's pretty much just watching these drivers run within a few hundredths of a second of each other. Mike Joy did a great job on the television side, plugging every single car's sponsor. That is the best part about single car qualifying coming back, not just for the Cup side. I hope all the other series take note as well.
Of course the announcer notices that.
I noticed that as well, Eric, and you're 100% right. I mean, and for the first time ever, too, they did it where they would have built-in commercial breaks. They wouldn't let the one car go out. Because I remember when we were kids, we watched single car qualifying, and if there was like a slower car or a smaller team out, that's when they cut the commercial. Now they're even giving the smaller teams TV time, too. So I think it definitely helps there.
I think that's a good idea.
There's another pet peeve of mine. And Scott, this was something that you brought to my attention, I think, on an episode that we did a year ago. When they do the starting lineups and then they stop, like at row 6, to talk to a driver in the front of the field, and then they just let the names kind of flash by. And I mean, like, you could have a guy in the truck series or an Xfinity race who saved up all his money for one shot, one opportunity, and he can't even hear his name called out on television because something could happen to take him out of the race. I just feel like that qualifying and the starting lineup, everyone deserves their credit. And even though it's a small, minute thing, I feel like it could mean so much to a small race team or a small business.
I even take that a step further. Not only should they announce the starting lineup, they should, if there was 3 or 4 cars there that didn't qualify, they should also get their name mentioned.
Which they used to do. So I don't know. Hopefully single car qualifying is an effort to get back to some of that. And I know that we haven't seen a lot of cars miss races, but as we're coming up to some more short tracks for the truck series, Eldora usually draws a pretty big crowd when that race comes up in a few months. I think that'll be a good opportunity to kind of highlight some of the teams who may miss out on that one.
So actually, I just want to ask, with the charter system, which has been in place for a while now, provisionals are gone, right?
Yes, I believe so like here, this past week they had like more than 11 cars fail inspection pre-race, essentially post-qualifying, but it was done pre-race. They re-rack the fields in order of owners' points. What they do, though, with the charter system, top 36 are locked in, so where they qualify is where they qualify. If they do get their time disallowed, then they're stacked based on owner points. It's as if they didn't qualify at all. For the teams that are not chartered, so let's say you have a 42-car field and they're only starting 40. For the teams that are not chartered, they will only take the top 4 on lap times based on those 6 drivers. So kind of like what IndyCar is doing this weekend for the 500 qualifying. So, yeah, the provisional thing, even the past champions provisional is kind of gone, which that used to be a leg to stand on for even on the truck side, like guys like Travis Kvapil, who won the title back in 2003, or Joe Nemechek, who had an Xfinity championship, in the early 90s. That was their thing, to constantly keep getting chances and opportunities, and it's kind of gone away for right now. So, another note that Josh had pointed out here, Denny Hamlin back at the Dover race, which of course ran on Monday. They recorded the RPM podcast that Monday night. It was reported that Hamlin actually suffered some pretty severe carbon monoxide poisoning, something that's starting to become a little bit more common, not just on the Cup side, but in racing in general. Scott, I mean, you race weekly. Granted, some of your races are not as long, or most of your races, I should say, are not as long as the 3+ hour Cup Series races. But, I mean, you run a lot of enduros as well. Have you ever gotten sick inside the race car from getting –
You know what? For the first time it happened to me this year, but it doesn't happen all the time because the cars are sealed off good. You almost need something else to fail to have that happen. I heard that Denny Hamlin had one of his crush panels come out of the car, and so the exhaust was coming up through there. I had a similar thing at the first Enduro this year at Grandview. My exhaust pipes actually fell off. We put headers on for the first time on the Enduro car instead of using stock exhaust manifolds, and both header pipes fell off during the race. So I was racing with open headers, and I really didn't notice it during the race. I knew the header pipes fell off, 1, because the car got loud, 2, because the red flag came out twice, and when I drove by, I'm like, man, that looks like my exhaust pipe. Right on the back straightaway. So, not once, but twice. I had one exhaust. My crew guy said to me, he's like, oh, you only lost one on the back straightaway because they were sitting on the back straightaway. I'm like, no, we lost both. There was one on the front straightaway, too. That was the first red flag. And I tell you what, I finished. What's that?
How does that happen? You tighten the bolts up or what?
No, not at all. What happened was it was the first time we put headers on the car. The exhaust pipes that we had on for the headers are bigger than the ones on the exhaust pipe, so they hung a little too low, so they got ripped off. So I went to a little bit smaller diameter pipe, and we just raised the ride height of the car up a little bit to make a little more clearance for the pipes, and they never fell off again. It was just working the bugs out of it. We tried something new this year, and the pipes fell off. But to tell you the truth, I felt fine during the race. We finished second, went through tech. On the way home, driving home, I started getting a bad headache. I'm like, man, I'm getting a bad headache. And everybody's like, oh, it's because the car was so loud because of the open headers. I'm like, no, it wasn't really that much louder with the helmet on and the earplugs in for the radio and all that stuff. It had to be from the carbon monoxide because I like when I was laying in bed that night, like the room was spinning.
Yeah, that's not good, man.
Yeah. I'll tell you, sometimes, especially if you're towards the back of the field at Wall, when, sometimes they would have us come down on the track, and if they were finishing up the interview from the previous race, or if they were, sometimes they would do a national anthem or something like that, you'd be sitting down there for a while, and all those cars just sitting idling.
I would always shut my car off for that reason. But like you said, you always have the guy next to you that just leaves the car running, and every 2 seconds he's revving it up, and he's just blowing the exhaust right in your car, Yep.
And then you get 20 of those cars all together, and there's a good cloud of not healthy stuff blowing through your car. So,
but like I said, if your car isn't damaged and your exhaust is on and everything is good, the likeliness of that happening is slim to none. It's caused by another factor from a crash or something falling off your car to get the carbon monoxide to come into your car. That's why it doesn't happen all the time to everybody. I mean, Jimmy Spencer used to get out of his car after a 500-mile race and suck down a whole bottle of oxygen. He wanted to head home until, as soon as he got out of the car, he put an oxygen mask on and he sucked down a whole bottle of oxygen. Everybody thought he was old and out of shape, and he's like, no, I'm doing it to put clean air in my lungs, to be proactive against getting carbon monoxide poisoning.
Well, that's some of the old school guys, used to drink milk for that same reason. After the races, it's supposed to take like that pollution
the toxins
out.
out. Yeah, the toxins out. I mean, I also learned from the old timers when we would melt the lead to make the weights for the race car. You're supposed to drink the milk before you melt lead because it coats your stomach, and it helps the toxins too not get to your stomach and stuff when you're breathing it in.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to be melting lead at all.
Yeah, but you still got to put it once in a while.
Well, for Hamlin, it was almost a case of deja vu. Early on in the Cup Series race, he actually suffered a flat right rear tire, and he radioed into his crew chief and said, did it get the crush panel? And they said, unfortunately, yes, it did, but they worked to fix it. Actually came back to finish 16th. So, and keep in mind, Rick Mast actually retired after suffering carbon monoxide poisoning. I think it was Richmond in 2002, after he'd been around the sport for a while.
He says he still even has it. He said, like, he can be sitting in his house, and if his neighbor's cutting the lawn next door and the window's open in the house and he can smell that lawnmower going by his window, he's got to shut the window. He said it still bothers him to this day.
Yeah, it's probably one of the true remaining intimate dangers that all race car drivers face, whether it's on a national level or local level.
Except
about
in
that,
Formula E.
I'm amazed how many racers don't lose their hearing like rock stars do. I was always amazed by that because we've been around loud race cars all our life, and I don't seem to have a problem from it. And I never really heard of anybody, but you talk to these old rock stars that have been on tour forever, they all have hearing problems.
Maybe with the helmet and and you got the earbuds in, I guess would help that a little bit.
What?
Next up for the Cup Series, the All-Star Race in Charlotte. We talked a little bit earlier that they are going to have a new element to their cars for the weekend. They're actually going to have those ducts come up through the hood to I don't know what the science is for it, but I'm sure they'll explain it on television better than I can, so I'll just leave it to the professionals. Also, for you New Jersey race fans, and Scott, you and I always talk about other podcasts, this week on the Dale Jr. download, there'll also be a TV version of this, also on NBC, so check your local listings. Martin Truex Jr. is going to be on for what looks like, from a 30-second clip that I've seen, is a really candid interview. It sounds like they talk about, his relationship, how Junior kind of gave him his big break. Maybe they'll get a mention of Wall Stadium in there as well. Who knows? But that is, in fact, available on at least the Apple Podcast app at the moment as we speak. But that's something that everybody may want to check out.
Well, I just wanted I'm sorry. I'm talking about the All-Star race coming up. It's going to be 80 laps. Round 1 is 48 laps. Drivers are responsible for full race commentary. Round 2 is 8 laps. They have to swim 1.2 miles. Final round is 24 laps. Seats removed from cars.
That's up from Steve Lovender's All-Star Generator.
Yes, it is.
Scott, what do you got, buddy?
I just got to pat myself on the back a little bit.
It's that time of the show already?
A quick Scott Riggleman story.
I got a Scott Riggleman story too, so go ahead.
Martin Truex Jr. did meet Dale Jr. at a Richmond test, and it was just a random Richmond test. This is when I was working for the Truexes. We were actually putting a South car together for Martin Jr. to go down there and try to race Richmond. Not to brag or nothing, but I'm the one that called Richmond and booked that test. And I set that up. And they did said that there was going to be another race team there so we could split the cost with the other race team, but they never told us who the other race team was. And when the Truexes showed up down there, Dale Jr. was the other race team down there testing a car. So that's how they kind of met,
Well, maybe you should have talked to Dale Jr. You would be driving that.
You know what? I didn't go to that test. They shipped me off to like Hutter or something to bring a motor back. I didn't go with the team down to that test.
Oh boy.
Tim, you got another Scott Riggleman story? Or
after we're done with the Cup stuff,
okay. Well, we kind of got into the truck race Friday with our buddy Phil Gould, who, again, thanks to him for coming on to join us. He's an overall great guy. I'd definitely take him up on the paydays and beer eventually. We talked about Stuart Friesen, how he was pretty much the truck to beat. Miscommunication on the last pit stop. Friesen apparently thought they were only taking 2 tires, left after they dropped the jack on the right side. That's all well and good. The problem is they didn't get it full of fuel. Ended up running out with about 3 laps to go, even though they tried to save late in the going. So Ross got his first Truck Series win, second NASCAR win. But that, of course, comes after all that he went through in the offseason with losing the DC Solar sponsorship after they had their government troubles, and now kind of finding himself racing for, Nice Motorsports in the truck when he can, Johnny Davis's Xfinity team when he can, also that second Cullig, if I'm saying that correctly, 10 car on the Xfinity side, and the Premium Motorsports Cup car. Nice to see him get that under his belt. And also, Josh's favorite, Natalie Decker, had another spectacular exit after spinning off of turn number 4. The front splitter of her truck dug into the ground so deeply, almost sent her over. But that's another DNF for Decker.
For hitting grass, that was a hell of a hit.
And guys, what do we always talk about future things that we think are going to see be gone from racetracks?
Grass and splitters.
The grass. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've been talking about that. Any place that a race car can get off the racetrack and I think should be paved. I think the days of the grass infields are over.
There was a funny thing on that. Somebody put on, I think it was Twitter. They said pretty soon grass is going to be illegal in the infield, but okay in the grandstands because the marijuana is going to be legal, and everybody's complaining about the grass in the infield.
And that is so terribly accurate. Top 10 for the trucks. Again, we mentioned Ross Chastain, the winner. Ben Rhodes got up to second late. Great run for Todd Gilliland. We talked about all the pressure he's under at KBM, finished third. Austin Hill, Daytona winner, had a solid truck all night, finished fourth. Brandon Jones came back from a spin earlier in the race to finish fifth in a KBM truck. Posted to Matt Crafton was sixth. Grant Enfinger seventh after he tangled with Brett Moffitt for the lead. They finished seventh and eighth, respectively. Riley Herbst ninth. Harrison Burton 10th. Friesen, after running out of fuel, was 15th. Sheldon Creed, who had some right front tire problems after getting into the wall, was 19th. Dover winner Johnny Sauter had a mechanical issue. He was 22nd. And Natalie Decker, after the crash, finished 25th. Trucks are going to race this Friday, as we mentioned with Phil, at the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Wait, how many trucks were there total?
I think 27 were on the entry list. I think they entered. I think 30 started.
30 started. There was two spots not filled. So a couple other teams did bring out backup trucks to field the field.
So how many wrecked before she did?
I think a couple had mechanical problems. We're starting to park.
Yeah.
Josh, I got a question for you about the truck race.
Uh-oh.
No. All right. Now, Stuart Friesen came in for 4 tires. He was told 4 tires. The spotter, as me being a spotter, I would say, all right, you're coming in for 4. You're getting 4. He comes in, he takes 2, they drop the jack, he pulls away. How is that the crew chief's fault?
Was he blaming the crew chief?
Everybody else was.
How is it not the driver's fault? I mean, I know we always joke that it's the spotter's fault, but
it was definitely the driver's fault in that instance. They called for 4, he pulled off with 2, and the fuel guy didn't get the fuel in.
I mean,
because even when you take 2 tires, they drop the jack, they hold the driver so the fuel can get in the car.
They keep the truck up until the fuel guy goes he waves.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he left on 2.
Yeah,
I never understand that too. If you're taking fuel, you might as well take 4 because in the amount of time you got to wait for the guy to get the fuel, and you can have the other 2 tires changed.
Yeah. I mean, that's all. I'm not perfect.
That would have been a good question for Phil, but I lost power at my house. So,
where's the generator after the race car? Should have fired that
up. We almost ran a podcast off my truck the one night.
Off Josh's cigarette lighter with his little.
So obviously we have a lot to get to on the local side with the big modified race coming up at Wall Stadium. So I'm going to roll through the open wheel stuff really quick. If you guys want to add anything, we could hit it. IndyCar race kicked off their month of May at Indy on the road course. Honestly, it was one of the best IndyCar races that I've seen in a while. And considering the fact that the road course at Indy is usually a snooze fest, it was pleasantly surprising. To kind of skip some of the meat in the sandwich, Simon Pagenaud found himself 7+ seconds back with about 7 laps to go, as they were beginning to negotiate what was then a drying racetrack with everybody on the wet weather tires. He chased down Jack Harvey for what was second and then passed Scott Dixon for the lead coming to the white flag. And you consider the fact that Dixon is probably one of the best IndyCar drivers ever. Pagenaud got his first win since 2017, and actually Penske has won every single race at that event except for one, and that was the inaugural race, which Pagenaud won, but he was driving for Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports at the time. So the podium was Pagenaud, Dixon, and Jack Harvey with a great run. That's the Michael Shank Racing entry paired up with Andretti that Harvey's running part-time. Now they had one off day this Monday that we're recording this podcast, and then tomorrow you'll be able to watch the start of all the Indy 500 practices on NBC Gold. I believe they have a discount right now for like $40 to $50. So It's going to be wild. I'm very, very hyped for the Indy 500 that'll be coming up. They're going to start qualifying this weekend. They will lock in the top 30 on Saturday. They will re-rack the front 9. They will run for the pole Sunday, and then they will take the slowest 6, and they will re-qualify to try to make the field for what they are going to call bump day. In the event that Sunday is rained out, the times will be referred to on Saturday, and that will be your official lineup for the 103rd 500.
I'm starting to feel like a NASCAR fan. What the hell?
I think they've overcome. The one thing I don't like, I believe, with the pole shootout and with the bump day, I think you only get one attempt, which I hate. I like the idea of watching guys trim their cars out to almost to a dangerous level to try to get in the show with a last-ditch effort. And I don't think
so
we're going to see
you
that.
Can't wave off your run now when you go out?
I don't believe so. I kind of have to check, but it looks like it's a very small window of opportunity where it may just be one shot. But I could be wrong.
Can you stop, go backwards on the track all the way back around? And
it's
been done.
Is there an official entry list out for that race yet, Eric, for the 500?
Yes, and it was actually released today because the last driver announcement was Oriol Servia in the 3rd Schmidt car, so he'll be teamed up with Marcus Ericsson and James Hinchcliffe. And then also some other news that broke today was that the Juncos team, which is the 32 entry, owned by Ricardo Juncos, who also has a sports car entry, teamed up with Kyle Kaiser, who qualified mid-pack last season. Turned out they had 2 major sponsors pull out as early as last week. So right now they don't have funding for the 500. They have a completely blank car and chassis ready to go on track tomorrow with Kyle Kaiser as their driver. However, Ricardo was quoted in a Racer Magazine article with Marshall Pruitt saying he's not sure he has the funding to make it to the 500, even if they qualify for the show this weekend.
He'll pick something up. Something will pop up if he
I'm
qualifies.
curious as to why they backed out. So
yeah, well, I mean, this team is so small that it seems as though they may hinge on some of those kind of untrustworthy businesses that say they want to get into motorsports, but the check never clears.
Yeah.
So now what I'm curious to see is Kyle Kaiser is their driver, and he's the Indy Lights champion 2 years ago. I did see Carlos Munoz put up a post saying that he will not be able to try to make the 500. He was the first guy that I thought of. I wonder if a driver can bring money if Ricardo and his team would be willing to shelf Kyle Kaiser aside in place of a fully funded 500 effort.
Yeah, I agree, Scott.
I mean, Ricardo's been loyal to Kaiser. He's been driving the sports car in a number of IMSA races so far this season. So, it's not like Kaiser as
a driver would have to understand that's a business deal that could help him later. If they can make some money on the final 500, it would be able to fund another race for him later on down the road. Was there any surprise guys on the entry list? Any sprint car drivers, or maybe I guess there's no chance of any Cup driver doing the double this time around, huh?
No, it doesn't appear for this year. However, hopefully there are some steps being made to try to make it possible next season. One sprint car driver, Chris Windham, who's a name that you guys may have heard of. He made a few ARCA starts a couple years ago, and trying to continue to forge that sprint car path. We've seen guys like Larson and Bell and Clausen. Wyndham did have a shot to compete in the Freedom 100, which is the Indy Lights race that takes place the Friday prior to the 500.
I like that race. I love that race.
I think they're only expecting 11 cars, so that's a bit of a letdown. I'd like to see the car count inflate a little bit in that series.
That race is so much better than the 500 every time.
Well, I love
Wyndham
the name of it, the
just-
Freedom 100. How cool is that, man?
And that's been the name of that race since its inception in 2003. So that's pretty neat. Wyndham was supposed to run that race a year ago, wrecked the car on the first practice session, his first ever oval appearance ever in an open-wheel car like that, because they couldn't make the test because they didn't have the car ready. They're going to bring him back again for a shot at it again this year. So it'll be cool to see what Wyndham can do, as hopefully he could be one of those sprint car guys that can make it to the top of the IndyCar ladder.
Any
so the
word
next
on
race,
Alonso, real quick?
Well, a lot of people are trying to guess who the 3 cars are that's going to miss the show, and I think you want to talk about the Juncos team. A lot of people would pencil them in, but, they qualified really well last year. So people are thinking that maybe Fernando Alonso is a driver who could be in jeopardy, because that is a sole McLaren entry. They don't have the Andretti support they had a few years ago when he made the 500. It sounds like there's already been a change on the engineering team after the open test there.
Well, the first problem is it's McLaren.
Well, with the McLaren banner, they did well, but that was with Andretti's support. Sounds like this time they're trying to go it alone. So
And what engine do they have in it?
I believe it's a Honda.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is a Honda. And if I'm wrong, then I'm fired. But so the next race, of course, is the 103rd Indy 500. We'll talk about that next week as it will be closer and we'll have the field set. The Formula One race was an absolute waste of time. Spanish Grand Prix. Bottas won pole, Hamilton took lead, and that's pretty much
there was an interesting turn 1 or 2. That was about it.
A lot of people were really upset with that product. Next race, of course, is Monaco Memorial Day weekend. So
Formula E is going to be racing Monaco too.
They actually ran this weekend.
I don't care what anybody says, but Memorial Day weekend is the best racing weekend of the year.
Amen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The best thing to do is spend Saturday night at your local short track, and then Sunday, wipe your schedule clean, turn on the television, plan some nice meals, plan some intermittent drink breaks, and just enjoy the day. If you can find an outdoor venue to do it, even better.
But it's a long day too, man, because you start watching that Monaco race early in the morning, and that Charlotte race goes to late at night, man. It's a long day of racing.
Yep. Absolutely love it. So we got a lot to look forward to. Before we look ahead, let's take a look back. The NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour finally. Tim, what was this? Third attempt to try to get this going?
Third attempt.
Unbelievable. Rain has been killing all of the short track races so far around the country this season. It's been abysmal. Scott, what you were telling me, you got the one and only feature win. What track was that? Was that
at Big Diamond Speedway? I have 2 feature wins, and the only 2 feature wins of the year so far. And my first one there was March 31st. My last one there was April 7th. They haven't completed a night of racing there since April 7th. I think they're 7 in a row with rainouts. Not only did they rain out on Friday night, their normal nights, a couple of times they had a Sunday rain date, and this Sunday rain date rained out as well.
It's crazy. It's at Bowman Gray Stadium. We have 4. We should have had 4 race weekends already at this point in the season. We've only had 1. We've rained out the other 3. One of which, of course, was the one that Tim Riggleman came down for and had to drive back home without seeing any racing action. So,
with me being a business owner and from a business standpoint, the beginning of the year is the most crucial time for these tracks to make some money because it's been a long winter. They haven't turned $1 in a while, and it's got to kill them when they go 7 weeks without making any income other than practices and selling pit licenses and season passes,
Yeah, and I think about Bowman Gray because they do have rain dates, but they very rarely utilize them. So, and it sounds like at this point they're a little reluctant to backfill the schedule into some of those rain dates. And I don't know how much more of this.
Bowman Gray schedule is so short to begin with.
Yeah,
because of the football.
So we'll see how that all pans out. So we got the Sizzler in, Timmy, and I know you were up there for that race. First of all, congratulations on the top 5. That's a well of a run for you guys. How is your race with Eric Goodale, and also how was the race as a whole?
First of all, how was the weather?
Weather was perfect. It was warm. I got a sunburn all over my set. It's all red up here. It was hot. No, not summer hot, but it was warm. Weather was good. The crowd was good. Racing was good. We did what we wanted to do. We kept our tires towards the end of the race, and we actually got a caution when we needed it, and we got the tires on, and we made it. We led for a little while, and a couple guys got by us at the end there. We finished. We ended up 5th. I think we should have been 3rd. We got shuffled back a little bit, and we ended up 5th, which is still a strong run for us. The racing was good all the way through the field. A lot of pit stops, a lot of different strategies. The Stafford's got a really good announcing crew. They're able to keep the fans up on who's doing what and what strategy everybody's on. And yet again, Jamie Tomato's car was the fastest there. We were second to him. He had a full straightaway that almost a half a track lead on us there for a while. We couldn't catch him. And unfortunately, something broke. Somebody told me, Scott, do you remember what broke on Jamie's car?
I know one of the guys following him behind radio and said, tell the 99 team they have something broke in the rear to the point where it was rubbing the tire, or the tire was rubbing the chassis or something. They were worried about the tire blowing out. So I'm thinking maybe a track bar or something broke in the car where the rear was moving around, but I'm not sure.
I feel bad for Jamie. Jamie's, is and was always like one of my favorite drivers next to Richie Evans. And he's taken a lot of slack over the last couple of years. And he's just gotten old, and he didn't want to didn't have the drive to do it. He put this kid in his car, and his car has been the fastest car, a Troyer car, mind you, the fastest thing in the last couple of races. They just haven't had the luck to seal the deal, but it's coming.
Talking about Chase Dowling, who led 78 laps, so nearly half the laps in that event. After not having the best starting, actually started up in the fourth spot, ended up having to settle for a 24th place finish, did Dowling, after they're running a part-time schedule. Did in fact, actually before we look ahead to that, Bonsignore won the pole. Dowling, of course, was strong, as Timmy mentioned. Then Doug Colby ended up grabbing himself a win, kind of helping him kind of extend that point lead ever so slightly over Craig Lutz, who apparently was right on him when they came down to the checkered flag. We also want to give a tip of the cap to Blake Barney, who got his third career top 10 finish on the Modified Tour, his first of 2019. Jimmy Blewett had a really strong season, fresh out of the gate. Timmy didn't seem to really be a factor much at all.
I don't know what his problem was in qualifying or all that, but he broke a brake line, I was told, in the feature.
Okay, that makes sense. So once
brakes are a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that will give Doug Colby the points lead by 17 markers over Patrick Emmerling. Ron's still currently sitting third. Blewett, even with the bad day at Stafford, still fourth in the championship standings. Justin Bonsignore fifth. Timmy's driver Eric Goodale still holding sixth in the championship standings. And Blake Barney cracked the top 10 with the strong run that he had. And that leads us to the next race, which will be the Jersey Shore 150 at Wall Stadium Speedway. A lot of anticipation, not just on the local side, but I think even for the modified competitors. Let's face it, the modifieds have the strongest consistent car count that we've seen them have in a long, long time. And they are capping the entries at 28. That entry list came out today. What I was going to say earlier is it looks like Jamie Tomeno himself is going to be at the wheel of that number 99 car this upcoming week. Also, Andrew Krause is entered in his family-owned number 24 car. We will see Jimmy Blewett in the 21 car that he's been racing all season long. Guys, there is a lot of anticipation for this race upcoming, not just because it's Wall, not just because it's the modifieds, but we hope this is the first of many repeat visits to the Speedway, but we're not exactly sure what the future holds, but we know this is going to be one hell of a show.
I mentioned before I love the name of the Freedom 100 out of Indy. I tell you what, I love the name Jersey Shore 150. That's a pretty cool name for this tour race that we have coming up.
Love it.
I just want to correct you on one thing you said. Eric, you said that they capped the entries at 28. They didn't cap the entries at 28. It's just 28 cars are going to start. I'm hearing there's up to like 36 cars entered into the race. So
that came out today. There's only like 28 cars entered.
Oh yeah,
I don't know where they got that 35 from.
Yeah, I heard they're starting 28.
I believe. Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were capping the entries at 28 and starting 26, or it was John Russell who actually.
Yeah, they would never cap the entries. I mean, everybody's
time trial.
Yeah, everybody has a shot to enter and race and try to make the race.
I think they should have Taylor Pork Roll sponsor the race and call it the Pork Roll 150. Oh, you get a loaf of pork roll for every lap you lead.
That's a lot of pork roll.
Yeah.
But going back to what Eric was saying, it's huge. If you just go on Doug Colby's page, social media page on Facebook, and see what he put about. Like, he's multi-time champion, multi-time winner, and he's excited to come to Wall Stadium. Does not want to come. These guys want to come to Wall Stadium. They want to come here. They want to beat Jimmy. This is what it's a lot of hype for this race, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good, I think.
I think this is probably going to be one of Jimmy's best chances for a win, for the season, just because, it's his home track. It's, where he dominates normally. I think it's going to be a good race overall. I already bought my tickets, my pit passes, too.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, the pit passes and the license debacles and all that. But I forget what I was going to say now. The races... It's going to be, if you go on social media, like on Jimmy Blewett's page, I was reading some of the comments. There's people coming up from North Carolina, Ohio. Some guy was coming from bringing his son from Myrtle Beach because they went to the tour race in Myrtle Beach, and his son likes Jimmy Blewett, and they're driving all the way up here to watch it. So I think that answers the question of this, the Fans Choice TV. Yes, most people will say, but there are people that are still traveling to come to this race.
Yeah.
You know, they're not staying home. They're coming to watch.
There's no blackout, right, for this?
I haven't heard of any.
Not only there's no blackout, they announced at our drivers meeting Saturday night at Wall Stadium, not only they're going to show the modified race on Fans Choice TV, they're going to show the whole card, the factory stocks, the sportsmans, and the four cylinders as well. So supposedly every race is going to be on Fans Choice TV.
And this race is going to be retelevised on NBCSN also, the modified race.
And I tell you what, Diane is psyched about having this race, man. She was telling me at the beginning of the year she wants everything to go off perfect. She wants, she's making sure the bathrooms are clean. She's making sure the track is tip top shape. Unfortunately, this weather's probably hurting her a little bit. I'm sure if she wanted to touch some paint up here and there, it's a little tough to do in this rainy weather. But she's psyched. I mean, she was telling me she wants it to go off good, and she wants it something that hopefully she can do from here.
The weather is supposed to be good this weekend, from what I read last.
Well, it's got to stop raining sooner or later.
Josh, pull the weather up.
I'm going to, but Scott, when does Alan need to get that stuff sprayed down? Like the Wednesday prior to the?
No, he said 24 hours before.
24 hours? Okay.
Yeah. But he did actually spray for the first time all year. He actually did have it on the track this week. I mean, there's a lot of factors: rain, winds. I mean, the one time you can't do it because of high wind. So it's really it depends what the weather's like Thursday and Friday if you can get that stuff down. I tell you what, I'm not a big fan of that stuff. I know I joked around a little bit last week saying I was stuck on the outside the last race for the whole race, and I wish they would have had that stuff. But the stuff was on the track today on this week. And it made the track a little tricky. I mean, it was weird. Like you'd be loose, then you'd be tight, and then it would grab you, and then it would let you go. It was kind of weird, but whatever. Everybody's got to deal with the same thing.
Yeah, another big question was a lot of people were asking. There was a couple drivers. Hirschman, I'm pretty sure Hirschman's not coming because there's an ROC race. Was he on the entry blank?
No, I did not see Hirschman. I did in fact see Anthony Sesley though.
He's driving.
So that's good to see Anthony back behind the wheel at Wall.
And I'm not so sure, and I hope they do come because a lot of people recognize the car in the Modified Tour. There was a question if Swanson was going to come in the Bowler 3 car, but I think they ended up not finishing so well at the last race, so they may or may not come. And a lot of people said that Ronnie Silk wasn't coming, and Ronnie Silk said in his interview after the race last week that he is coming, so he will be there. Which is Ronnie Silk runs very well at Wall Stadium.
So I'm looking at a 10 to 14% chance of rain Saturday. So that's pretty low. Otherwise, they're just saying partly cloudy. Looking pretty good so far.
What about Sunday?
Sunday, maybe something like early in the morning. There's like a 30% chance of rain. But other than that, the rest of the day, you talk about noon or whatever, it's clear. And it looks pretty clear on Friday as well. So if it shifts one way or the other, you have a good buffer either side. So hopefully it'll work out.
Yeah. See, a lot of people, we're talking about Jimmy. I guess he's the favorite to win, but like I said, Ronnie Silk runs really well there. Doug Colby runs very well at Wall Stadium. A couple of years in Turkey there, he was in that brown car. And remember, something happened. He was running right up front. He runs really well there. So, and Timmy Salomino's got a lot of track experience now compared to the other guys. He's been racing Wall on and off.
Plus, you have a long shot like Danny Bone. He's coming up to race. He knows how to get around Wall Stadium well. One thing I did hear about Jimmy that I was pretty surprised about is he's not racing his spec engine at Wall Stadium. He's actually going with the old built engine package. He says he dislikes that package for Wall Stadium, and he thinks it'll be better than the spec engine. So he's trying something a little different, going outside the box a little bit, and I think it's going to pay off for him. He did get the test a little bit last week, and there was 4 or 5 cars there testing last week, and he was the fastest out of them.
Who else was there? Do you know?
Andrew was there, Cecily was there, and Blake Barney was also there.
Okay.
Wall Stadium is just very, very, very challenging for any type of race car, let alone a modified. I think for a lot of the modified regulars, they're going to be rather surprised if they haven't raced at Wall before. A lot of these drivers do elect to make the trip out for Turkey Derby. Some of them elect to skip it. I recall the story that I had when I ran into Teddy Christopher a few months before his untimely passing. When I first met TC, he would just adamantly expressed how much he despises racing at Wall because of how difficult it is, and because a lot of the times if you get off strategy and get out of the top few positions, you're almost putting your fate in somebody else's hand in front of you because of how fast and tight everybody's running. Towards the end of his career, he wanted to get back there. So, yeah, it's true. He wanted to get back there, and he told me that he wanted to try to work out a deal to race that Turkey Derby. And unfortunately, it never came to fruition for obvious reasons. But I think that a lot of people, especially if you're a racer and you know the history behind Wall Stadium Speedway and you know what it's all about, and we have so much proof as to the amount of talent that we have bred from there, whether it be drivers, wrenchmen, hopefully someday some type of commentator. There is a lot that has come from that track, and the Krause family has done so much. And I know that it was a dream of Cliff's to have the tour back. I mean, keep in mind, the last tour race was in 2007. Jimmy actually won the last tour race that they had there at the track. And I know that it was something that Cliff had wanted. Unfortunately, he's not around to see it. But, man, Diane was so driven to make this possible. And I want this to be a huge success for them because they deserve it. Cliff deserves it. Diane deserves it. Emily deserves it. And I would pencil Andrew in as a guy to watch. I feel
we can't count Andrew out. You're 100% right. We can't count Andrew out. Even against a competition like the Tour brings, he gets around Wall Stadium very well.
You got to remember that he's just not a local guy trying to run the Tour. He's been running the Tour also. So he's a Tour guy. So he's got experience with everybody else. He'll be okay. You know.
What do you think of Blake, though? Because now this is familiar territory.
Blake can get a Turkey Derby. He can run up front there as well.
Yeah.
I think it's going to really shake it up for the Tour. I especially since they haven't, it's essentially a new track for a lot of the guys that are running. It's going to be out of the ordinary, and then some of the guys that are now it's their home track. It's really going to throw a wrench in the works, and I'm excited to see how it turns out.
I've been telling a lot of people, I feel like this is like the Talladega race. It's kind of like a crapshoot. As far as points go, this could really shake up the points here. So Absolutely. You want to get through here. You want to get through this race.
Two more points of contention I want to make before we move on. Dave Sapienza, also another guy to keep in mind, former guest in the RPM podcast after he won Turkey Derby. So he qualifies really well there. He races really well there. And then from what I got from our discussion the last time that we talked to him, if you didn't get a chance to hear that interview, you can go back to the RPM podcast archives, either on our podcast networks or our YouTube channel. He has fallen in love with racing at Wall. And to me, confidence heading into a track like Wall is a huge difference maker. And that's why we mentioned some of these guys as names and drivers to watch. And to another point that Timmy made about Andrew running the Tour, one of Andrew's other favorite tracks is Thompson. And the way that Thompson races, even though that track is much bigger in terms of physical size, the line that many of these drivers take around Thompson, you could run a similar fashion, like a late apex or even a diamond. And if you could figure out how to do that at Wall, which we've seen Andrew and Jimmy and others be able to do so well, that could be the difference maker. That's how you set up a pass, is getting back to the throttle while washing up in the middle of the corner and getting hammered down as quickly as possible and trying to beat someone down the end of the straightaway. I cannot wait to watch this race on Saturday night. And for those of you who want to see it on television, it will air on NBC Sports Network Thursday night, 7 p.m., May 23rd. So how about that for kicking off your Memorial Day weekend with the modifieds at the Jersey Shore Oval?
Just think, if you didn't quit on us and leave town and run down the North Carolina, you'd probably
if I would have known this was coming, I would have.
And you know what? Now that you mentioned that, Eric, real quick, Tim, it was one of the best kept secrets at Wall Stadium. No one had any idea the Tour was going to come there until the schedule was announced. And everybody that lives up here and is raced at Wall Stadium, secrets don't keep very well up here. Everybody knows what's going on, and that was a very well kept secret.
Yeah, it was. I got a couple questions I want to answer on here. Are you guys done with what you want to say about the Tour race?
All yours, Timmy.
All right. Well, first question is, a lot of people, the tickets. Okay. From what I gathered, and I made some phone calls and stuff today, you can buy the tickets online from now until Friday morning at 10 o'clock. After that, whatever tickets are left, you can buy at the office Friday and Saturday. The only way you won't be able to buy tickets at the track is if the tickets are sold out by then. Are the tickets going to sell out by then? God, I hope they sell that place out, but I don't think they'll. I think there'll still be tickets available.
There'll be enough tickets left for walk-up crowd.
Yeah, my mom did buy her. She wanted to make sure she bought tickets for herself and my daughters today. She said it was very painless. You go on there, you fill out a form by a couple clicks, and then you pay for them, and you print them right out, and they come right out of your printer, and it was that easy. So it's not a train wreck like some people said they couldn't get them. If they couldn't get them, I don't know what. My mother.
They're NASCAR fans. Remember single car qualifying.
Okay, fair enough.
I just think some people got disappointed because they were at the track Saturday and they wanted to purchase their tickets in person while they're at the track Saturday and they weren't able to do it. So they thought you had to buy them online, but you only had to buy them online until Friday.
Yeah. And camping. I'm not 100% sure. I never got an answer. Has anybody seen anything about camping? Like, were they charging like they do for Turkey Derby? Or
I have no idea.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything regarding camping. Yeah, I'm going to work Friday, and then I'm going to go to the track Saturday.
And the other one, of course, everybody on the Modified Tour asked me where to go eat because a lot of people are coming down Friday.
Why would they ask you? I don't understand.
I don't know either. I don't know, but they did for some reason. I suggest anybody that I would say support the places that support the track. Go to Woody's, Pete and Eldest, and or the River Rock would be the three that I would say support the track the best.
It all depends on where you're staying, really.
Yeah, a lot of people, believe it or not, are staying. I was telling my brother today, are staying in Point Pleasant, like all the hotels down by the beach.
Point Pleasant, you can go to the Ark.
You go to the Ark? Yeah. You can
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, the Ark would be great.
I suggest you what's that? The shrimp boxes in Point Pleasant is very good. They're the two places that are there. And then for breakfast, I would either go to the Roadslide Diner on 34 or Mariners Cove in Brielle if you're staying in Point Pleasant. So that takes care of my fat guy version of the podcast.
I will say, I saw a lot of people say that, I don't think it's going to sell out. Turkey Derby doesn't sell out. Turkey Derby usually has like sub 30-degree temperatures. We're looking at sunny and 65 right now. I mean, I think this is going to be a little bit of a different spectacle. Plus, Turkey Derby is annual. We haven't seen the tour at Wall in about 12 years. And we don't know if or when we will see it again. I think that this is a totally different animal. So I would recommend for everyone who is looking to get tickets, try to get them as soon as you can, because who knows? This is a big deal. And I'm sorry I'm not a part of it.
I'd like to add to that, the people that live around here and have, for lack of a better term, pissed and moaned about Wall Stadium for the last 3 years. It costs a lot of money to get the Modified Tour to come to this track. If you're living in this area and you're a race fan, don't watch it on TV. Come out, buy your ticket, support the racetrack, because you don't know. If this doesn't work well, there might not be a racetrack to go to next year.
I heard it's like the tune of $80,000 to get the Modified Tour to show up at your track.
I mean, people are pissing and moaning because I got to pay $3 extra for a ticket. Well, Diane Krause had to pay whatever amount of money to get these guys there. That $3 is well spent. You might not, like Eric said, you might not get this chance again. So,
now I want to.
Does anybody know?
Sorry, Scott.
Does anybody know if the world famous Sam Ballard's going to make it up to this race?
I didn't see him at Stafford.
He had to miss. He originally was going to miss Stafford for finals, and I mean, not to speak on behalf of Sam, but I've been in touch with him a lot because Sam was originally going to miss Stafford for finals. Then, of course, the tragedy at UNCC took place. He was already off the roster for that event. So even though the rainouts, he would have been able to go due to the schedule opening up, he was already kind of accounted for having to miss that to finish up his college career. So he is, in fact, coming to Wall Stadium Speedway with the official shirt on. Meanwhile, Eric Graham and myself are heading to Road America for the third stop on the 2019 World Karting Association Manufacturers Cup Series Tour. I know for Eric, it hurts he's not going to be at Wall Stadium Speedway, especially for this particular event. But nevertheless, when duty calls, he is one of the race directors with WKA, and Road America is one hell of a venue. So I think the two of us would really like to not miss out on the opportunity to be at Wall for this, but that's a will be. But we will be well represented with Sam. So, and I know he's happy to come home.
I want to add to what Tim was saying about place to eat. If you're not from New Jersey, you're not from this area, stop at a Wawa. You have to. Don't ask me. It's a convenience store. It's Wawa. It's awesome. You will love it. If you don't love it, go. I don't know.
Does then
cheeseburger quesadilla?
Josh, can you pull up the schedule for this real quick?
Yes. As long as you guys filibuster while I do that.
Yeah. Well, I can do that. Like Eric was saying, this race means a lot to me. I got a tour win here with John back in the day, and every person I ever spot for, I'm like, you got to come to Turkey Derby. You got to come to Turkey Derby, and it never really seems to happen. So when it broke out that this race was going on, I texted Eric Goodell right away. I'm like, now you got to come to Wall Stadium, boy. You got no choice. So I'm really excited. I think Eric will do well here. He likes tracks like this, so looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to, because my kids are really looking forward to having a tour race at their home track. So
has Eric ever raced the modified at Wall Stadium?
He claims he was here once for a Turkey Derby. And apparently he got wrecked on like 3 laps in or on the green flag lap or something like that. But I don't remember him being here, but he said he was.
What about a legend car? Did he ever race legend cars, Tim?
Not that I know of.
Modifies? No? Okay.
Not that I know of.
All right, Tim, what was your question about the schedule?
What time can the fans get there to get in and pick, the grandstands open?
The grandstand, jeez. The grandstands open at 2 p.m.
I suggest you get there a little early because it's probably going to be a bit of a pain to park and get in there.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they're going to have shuttle buses. I haven't read anything about that, but like Turkey Derby is.
Scott, were you online when Eric made a good point that Turkey Derby does not sell out, but it's also 30-degree weather where this is like ideal weather. So that very well may factor. I hope they do sell it out. That would be good for everybody. And just for the point of like every track that we've raced at this year so far has been packed. I don't want them to come to New Jersey. We have half a grandstand. It doesn't look good.
There's going to be a great crowd this weekend. I can't wait because I get to race in front of that great crowd, so I can't wait.
Well, that's another point for a driver like you, You're going to get for a packed. You don't know how many people asked me on the tour races if you were racing. Is your brother going to be racing? I'm like, yeah, he'll be there. He'll be there.
So, real quick, 2:15 to 2:50, they're going to have a rotating practice, and then from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., they're going to have tour mod practice only. And then 4:35 to 5:15, they're going to have another rotating practice. 5:45 qualifying will start with factory stocks, 4-cylinders, and sportsmen. At 6:20, the tour mods will do their time trials. They get 2 laps. Short intermission. 6:50 will be the opening ceremonies, and 7 p.m. the feature races will begin. It's going to be the factory stocks, 25 laps, 4-cylinders, and sportsmen, all 25 laps. And then 8:30 sharp will be the tour mod race.
And just so fans know, 8:30, if that schedule says 8:30, the modifieds will be on that track at 8:30 no matter what's going on.
Now, what I like about this is that the factories go first, so they should get their whole race in. The 4-cylinders should usually do a pretty decent job. And then if the sportsmen decide to be sportsmen again, they can kick them off and start the mods. I like that. I think that's the right way to do that schedule.
Another quick Scott Riggleman track fact. Not only will you be able to see me and my wife racing the factory stock race, but me and my wife will also be operating the tow truck during the modified tour race. So that'll be pretty fun too.
Eric, is there a lot of hubbub about this race down south?
Well, I haven't gotten to the track that much. We've gotten killed at Bowman Gray so far this season. It's kind of crazy. But I will tell you, from a lot of people that I talk to, it's garnering a lot of interest. And just for me, just for an era of nostalgia, and I try to think to myself, if I didn't announce, or if I wasn't somehow connected to Wall Stadium Speedway on a true emotional level, is this an event that I would pencil in as must see? And I start to realize that, I would take the time out, or I'd hook my TV up to the internet to watch the modified event. First, the World Series at New Smyrna. Then I had Thompson on the big screen, and then I was watching. I don't know. I was watching something on TV, and I had Stafford on my phone. I feel like that if I was not affiliated with Wall in any way, this would be like must-see TV. And if I was in the area, it would be a race that I just have to go to. It's almost like when the World of Outlaws come to New Egypt. Like, I feel inclined to make the time to try to get there.
But
And
plus when it's a new event, it makes it exciting.
Yeah.
So, you would
It's
definitely
been so
see
long since they've been there. It basically is a new event again.
Yep.
I agree with that.
I have some more information because I just scrolled down on the event because I should have done this earlier to do my research.
Dollar Dog Night.
No, not
That'd be
quite.
a world record.
So if you're looking to stay in there, the track has a discount code. If you use Wall Stadium as your discount code for the Courtyard by Marriott in Wall Township, or the Holiday Inn Express in Neptune, New Jersey. That's all on the wallspeedwayracing.com website if you go to the event page. And in reference to the camping, campers are welcome at this event. Parking will start Friday morning, May 17th. All campers and personal property must be removed by Monday, May 20th at noon. The parking fee is $40. It's a flat rate for the weekend. Stay as little or as long as you want. Check in at the main office upon arrival to receive a parking sticker. There's no electric hookup or sewer or anything like that. But there is your answer regarding camping.
$40 to park or camp. $40 to camp.
Yes.
If you're there a day or 4, it's $40, and I think that's more than fair.
Yeah.
You gotta get your camper out of there by Monday morning. You hear that, Skippy? Monday morning, your camper's got to be gone.
Yeah, otherwise, Scott's going to tow it, and then we're going to have a free
Oh,
RPM
yeah.
camper.
Scott, you get this tow Skippy's camper out. You bring it right to the house here. I'll put that thing right in my backyard. He'll never get it.
And just for everybody to know, too, because our producer of the RPM podcast doesn't know, Riggleman Towing does pick up junk cars. I don't know why Josh Matthews used an outside vendor, but he did.
You weren't here for that one, were you, Eric?
No, I missed it.
Yeah, no, Josh sold a junk car to somebody else besides Scott Riggleman.
I guess he doesn't watch the podcast with the Riggleman Towing thing bouncing all over the screen all the time.
I don't know how you do that, man.
I'm a jerk. I'm a jerk.
It's totally off topic, but I had a coworker of mine who was having a problem with his truck, and I was like, I know a guy. Oh, but he's in Jersey. Like, I don't know why I forgot that I was 600 miles away from you.
Well, you know what's funny about that? Doug Dunleavy with Dunleavy Truck Repairs, because he sponsors modifieds all over the country. He says it's crazy because he's a Connecticut-based repair business, and he gets phone calls from North Carolina. He's got to explain to the people, listen, I sponsor the modifieds because I love modifieds, not because I want business in North Carolina.
That shows you sponsorship works.
Except on the RPM podcast.
Now, we're all really hyped for the Jersey Shore 150. Again, for more information, visit wallspeedwayracing.com. They got a little bit of action in this past Saturday before Mother Nature interrupted. The highlights of the night, though, were spectacular for the wrong reasons. I wasn't there, guys, but I saw that both Greg Miranda had a very, very hard crash. Sounded like he had a stuck throttle. From what I read, was under caution. And Robert French, I saw that he finally got his modified prepped and ready. The former, I think, close to the all-time legend car win leader at Wall. I think him and Mike Alcaro were close to each other at one point. I think French took the all-time win honors. I don't know if Alcaro got him back yet. But French, all-around great racer, finally got the modify ready, and the damn thing sailed right into the end of the pit wall sand barrel. So, and that was it. That was the end of the night. The rain came, and just another reminder for all of our listeners, rain checks for last week will not be able to be honored this week. It's a wholly different event. It will be good for any regular season show going forward, but not for the Tour Type Modified event this Saturday.
From what I read, it's not good for the Modified Tour race and the drifting race. Anything else, it's good for.
Yep, that is correct.
Another thing I just want to touch base on the two cars that wrecked real bad at Wall. I do park next to Doug French and Robert French in the pits. When their car was bought in, believe it or not, those dirt barrels did their job. The car's not that bad. The front bumper wasn't even bent on it. He almost looked like he could continue, except that the radiator got knocked out because the dirt pushed the front spoiler back and into the radiator and broke the radiator. Other than that, the car looked fine, other than it was covered in dirt. And Doug French, the Frenches own a dump truck business. They've been in the dump truck and dirt business forever. And he's like, well, the good news is I got a free load of dirt out of it. So he was in good spirits, even though they just wrecked their brand new race car. Number 2, Greg Miranda. Unfortunately, his car was destroyed. And I know that for a fact because he does listen to the RPM podcast, and he sees that Riggleman Towing is a sponsor of the RPM podcast. And they called me this morning and they told me that they left the car at the racetrack, and it's still sitting there. And they asked me if I can go there today and pick it up and run it up to Greg's shop in Hazlitt. And when I pulled into the pits today to pick that car up, I thought the front of the car was on a jack stand, to the point where I got down on my knees in the pouring rain to look under the car to see if there was a jack stand under it, and there wasn't. The car was bent so bad that the right front tire, the chassis rail was on the ground, and the right front tire was about a foot off the ground. That's how bad that car was bent. So,
and he was okay?
Greg was fine. I was up at his shop around noon. He owns Greg's Family Auto Care up in Hazlitt on 35, and he was at work. He came out. When I showed up with the car, he came out and he moved a few cars. He actually pushed a few cars out of the way and showed me where he wanted me to put his car. He was in good spirits. He said he was a little sore where the belts were, but he said everything worked good. The Hans device worked good. His full containment seat worked good. He said Sunday they're pulling the motor out of the car. He already has that's an older style late model with a stock Camaro clip. He says he's already stripping a Camaro clip down. He's going to pull the motor out, get all the bent parts off it, and then he's going to have me tow it back over to Ron Freese's shop, and Ron Freese is going to put a clip on for me. They're talking about repairing the car. So
wow,
that's good to hear.
That is really good to hear, especially because he took a really nasty hit a number of years ago and broke his hip, I believe.
Yeah, and I mean, and Greg's a great guy, and he's like you, Josh. He's been battling cancer for a while, and another thing is cancer takes a big toll out of your body. So for him to absorb a shot like that, it shows he's in still pretty good physical shape, and he doesn't have any side effects from the cancer physically wise. And he says he'll be back racing in a few weeks. He hopes, to keep supporting that division.
Let's hope so. Wow. Yeah, I did see some pictures of that car, and it was in bad shape.
I was going to take some pictures of it on my flatbed, but number one, I did it out of respect to Greg. It's really not my business to post his wrecked race car on there. Plus, the wind was blowing and it was raining and it was cold. I loaded that car, but I got back in the tow truck. So,
also, real quick, there's a video we got to see up on Facebook because Lee Allen likes to give us a hard time when we don't mention Bridgeport.
All right, before we get out of Wall Stadium, I do want to talk about Lee Allen. Last week's rain out was Star Wars night. May the 4th be with you type stuff. You have that this weekend, and I have to share what the girls got. Diane does an excellent job. This is the first one. This is Boba Fett. Just so you know, these are real Star Wars collectibles. These aren't.
That's wild.
They're awesome. That's one. We got C-3PO. There he is. Okay. And last but not least, everybody's favorite, we got Chewbacca.
Oh. I want one.
They were free at the gate, Tim?
Yep, they got them for free. They all got lightsabers. And Scott, you had a story about the lightsabers that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I had a little bit of funny story about the lightsabers. Before the rain came, the modified feature did start racing. And as everybody know, a cool thing they do at Wall Stadium and they in all the divisions, with the one lap to go before we take the green flag, it's also a wave lap. They announced over the radio that's a one to go, wave lap, wave to the fans. So we all wave to the fans. Well, all these kids had lightsabers, and they were all waving their lightsabers at the crowd. And it looked so cool sitting in the pits and looking down the grandstands and seeing all these lightsabers waving in the air. The only bad thing is the very popular lightsabers are green and red. So now these kids got these green and red lights in the grandstands, and during the race, they're waving around in the grandstands. I'm like, man, someone's going to take the red flags out and hit the brakes here. So,
that's why all divisions at Wall Stadium should have spotters.
Yeah, but it went fine. Nobody paid attention to the lightsabers in the grandstands. But I'm like, maybe next time they might want like blue and orange ones or something like that. But the green and red ones.
But Diane does an awesome job with that stuff, Eric.
Yep.
She really is good with all, Hawaiian. Every weekend she's got something cool going on, That no other racetrack does that any better than she does.
And I learned something new, too. I always thought it was a lightsaber. You know, it's a light
saber.
Yeah, saber, like a knife. Yeah, light saber.
Yeah, we're talking about Star Wars, Josh.
Not Star Trek. Not Star Trek.
Yeah, it's going to be a long night for me, isn't it?
Josh, I do want to say something to you though, with all the Riggleman towing bashing. I know Scott's camping. Schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So one night when he's camping, now we'll go steal his tow truck and bring your car to his house.
Okay, all right. I'm game for this.
And we'll take pictures of the Riggleman towing flatbed and we can post it. Thank him.
The problem is he's not going to fix my car. He's going to junk it.
Scott's got a phobia.
Junk car, so I'm taking that one.
Scott's got a phobia. He'd be like, "Oh, look at this! I got to fix." He couldn't let that car sit there long enough broken.
There was one of those memes going around Facebook. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it's.
I saw it. Yeah.
Why can't you be like a normal husband and look at porn on the computer instead of looking at buying other race cars? You already have 4.
Yep.
A lot of people shared that on mine, and I said, "Well, you guys are wrong. I have 4. I think it said 3. You know, you already have 3." I said,
"Oh,
well,
I thought you were going a totally different direction with that."
I said, "Well, no, I got 4. You know, so I could buy another one."
Eric, go ahead and say it.
No, it's a family show.
Anyway, Lee Allen, I think, finally caught his tool thief. It was a raccoon running around in the shop. The raccoons are cute. Why do they have to be so mean?
Lee Allen listens to the show. Lee, you got to let me be able to share that, and I'll post it on the RPM board for everybody. But it's funny. Did you watch the video, Josh?
Yeah.
The thing's coming down. He's climbing down like a circus, like he's in a circus.
The thing was spelunking.
And Lee has a very distinct voice. You know what I mean? he's like, hey. And the raccoon stops dead. He's like, he got caught. Lee's yelling at him like he knows what he's talking about, you know?
All right, let's put it this way. If you're in the pits, there are 3 voices that you will know. Todd Pilla, Chris Felber, and Lee Allen. You cannot mistake them for anybody else.
Yeah, I guess apparently he's been having tools missing, and they found that. And then, Scott, you had a story that Charlie Kramer told you about a raccoon.
Oh, yeah, Charlie Kramer had the same thing at his garage. He was missing tools, and he knew he had raccoons up in the attic, so they put traps up there to catch the raccoons. And when they went up there to set the traps, there was a bunch of tools up in the ceiling. So I guess they have something against the tools. They like to collect tools.
But they're shiny. They're distracting.
Real quick before we forget, I'm trying to find it right now because we did ask people last week, and we're still asking people about how they got their race car number. And we did have
somebody sent me one too.
Yeah, we did have someone comment on our YouTube page, and I wanted to just show that we do pay attention to people comment, and I wanted to mention his name is Cody Boehm. He said my number is 78 because I was always a huge Martin Truex Jr. fan, so he runs the number 78 in honor of Martin Truex Jr.
Yeah, there's somebody else sent me one. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. I'll mention it again next week. I've just been real, racing and getting ready for the tour race and stuff. He raced a number because his dad raced a number, and it was his grandfather's baseball number or something like that. So that was really cool that, heritage or 3rd generation using the same number. And is it time for my Riggleman story? We all done with Wall Stadium? Any more Wall Stadium?
Yeah, Tim Majek.
Oh,
yeah,
I
just want to congratulate Tim, who is, first of all, you want to talk about a jack of all trades. This guy does everything. Home construction business, police officer, deer whisperer, and also race car driver. Yeah, he does absolutely everything. Well, now he's engaged. So congratulations, Tim, and also to your fiance. I believe her name's Diane, and if I got that wrong, Tim's a big guy. He will kick my behind next time he sees me if I did get that wrong. But
you deserve it anyway.
I do, and my dog just will not leave me alone. But congratulations, Tim. Very happy for you.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Congratulations. I don't know him all that well, but the little bit I have talked to him, he's a good guy. So
he really is.
Hope it works out for him.
All right, Tim, what's your Riggleman story?
I reminded me when he said his exhaust fell off of his, whatever that car, that Enduro car. Back when we were younger, Scott bought it. We still have it. It's in the garage at my mom's house. A beautiful Z28, 1979 Z20. The car, Cousin's Auto Body redid that car, correct?
Yeah, Vinny Pasuco. He was a former monostock driver. He did all the body work and paint on that car, and it came out.
It was beautiful, nice. But it was a little mechanically off. But that was okay because we as kids couldn't do the body work, but we had plenty of people through the racing that could fix the mechanical. Well, one thing was wrong with it is the exhaust was hung too low on it, and I had a 70,
myself.
I had a 79. I had a 79 Grand Prix that looked like the body was all messed up. The paint was falling off of it. And Scott had this beautiful car. We're cruising around, and he's in front of me. And it was a shopping center off of Route 9 in Howe. Scott's all thinking he's cool with him and his high school buddies in his car. And he comes up, and there's the speed bump. And I can see it. I'm behind him in my crappy car. And it ripped the exhaust right off the bottom of the car when he hit the speed bump. So he wasn't cool no more driving home the farm with the thing going all the way.
That had headers on it too. That car had headers on it too.
I had a lot of fun in that car.
It had zoomies after you were done with it.
Yeah. Well, what it was is it had short pipes on it when I first got the car. But when you went through inspection, they had to put that probe in it to do the emissions. Well, they wouldn't bend underneath the car to put the probe in it. The exhaust had to extend out far enough put the probe in. So I just went home and ran straight exhaust pipes back straight under the rear, not over the rear, and it worked good until you ran over a speed bump. I think we just lost Eric.
No, he's here.
He's still there. His webcam's off. He's still there.
All right.
Go ahead, Scott.
So, yeah, I just ran straight pipes to hold me over for a little while until I got money up, and then I took it to Meineke and had the regular exhaust put on it.
And just so you know, Josh, back in the day, Cousins Auto Body was very involved with racing at Wall Stadium.
Yeah, they were kind of like the way Tim Steffen is now, where they painted a lot of the race cars. Cousins Auto Body painted a lot of the race cars.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that should wrap everything up nicely. Eric?
I'm really stupid. I had my phone plugged into my laptop this whole time trying to charge it, and apparently I did this whole podcast on spot, which I'm probably going to have to pay for in some capacity. So that's why I dropped out, because I figured it out and I turned it off and it kicked me off for a minute. So sorry. But yeah, that's
you wouldn't use the data from your cell phone?
So I have unlimited data, but if I use the hotspot feature to feed another device, they charge you for it, which go to a certain point. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get away with it because my phone was also on the house Wi-Fi, so I don't know what happened, but nevertheless, that was weird. So Scott, I will join you as the technical gremlin bug for the Monday night.
After Phil won that race on Friday, Nancy thought it'd be a good idea to get a hold of him. Like you said, I've known Phil for a long time. We raced together many years ago in the street stock division at Wall Stadium, and I look forward to talking to him. I was going to do a little ribbing on him and seeing who's the better street stock racer and all that stuff. And I look forward to the last couple of days. I couldn't wait for this interview with Phil, and the interview was going great. And I never lose power at this house, never. And sure enough, I lost power in the 10 minutes I really needed it to interview Phil. Just to let you know, just to let everybody know, Phil was a very good street stock racer at a very young age at Wall Stadium. He was always fast. He was a little bit different than everybody. A lot of us were running the metric cars like we're running now, the Monte Carlos, the Malibus, all that stuff. He had a Camaro. He had a Leaf Spring Camaro, and he got that thing hooked up real good. And he was tough to beat every night. He was a lot of fun to race with.
Yeah, and Scott, I was highly anticipating the dialogue between you two. And once you went MIA, I was like, uh-oh. And the momentum of the interview kind of it didn't stall out, but it kind of got a little choppy because I kept waiting to see if you were coming back. So,
yeah.
Well, thank God you were here because God knows what me and Joshua were doing.
That's what I said to Nancy. I said, thank God it was Eric's there, because if I would have done that without Eric, Tim and Josh would have been staring at each other.
There would have been a whole liver bush.
Phil Gould would have went from guest to host of the RPM. Real quick.
We did tell him, no, he's got to go to Charlotte and win again so we can have him back on next Monday.
Another thing I wanted to touch base with Phil, and you guys probably didn't know, but not only did Phil race and Phil's father race at Wall Stadium, his brother Rich also ran street stocks there for many years too, and he was a lot of fun to race with also. And Rich did move down south, and he was running the Hooters Pro Cup cars down there for a while. And now I noticed he did stop racing that, and he started a house painting business. And I was just wondering how Rich was doing down there, but I didn't get a chance to ask. So maybe next time we have Phil on, we can talk a little bit about his brother Rich and his racing.
Okay. I'm down. I'm good with that. All right.
I did want to, Scott. Your what do you call it that you were talking about last week? The old racetrack where they raced the cars on them.
Oh, they got it in, and they had a great turnout.
They had an awesome turnout.
Yeah, Circle M Ranch ended up having a beautiful day there on Saturday, and they had a great turnout of cars and vintage cars, new cars, and everything. And I did a little more research where that track is at, and I actually drive right past there when we go to Big Diamond, because we do take Route 61, and it says Route 61 to Route 895 at Deer Lake, and we pass right by Deer Lake. So maybe the next time I go up to Big Diamond, I'll leave a little early, and I'll take a little cruise over there and check the track out in person.
One other thing I'm going to mention, we got 2 racetracks that are in trouble. Whelen Speedway is in trouble, and also anybody that is fans above the Love Sponge, his racetrack is in foreclosure, which is very sad. I don't know if anybody, Sirius FM, Bubba the Love Sponge was on there with Howard Stern for a while.
He's also personal friends with Tony Stewart, too. I have a feeling Tony Stewart's going to help him bail out that racetrack.
Howard Stern and him used to be enemies, and then when Howard got his power at Sirius, he was the first guy to hire. That Howard hired, and he loves racing, and he bought a racetrack in Florida, and he's fixed. It's a beautiful racetrack, and now it's in foreclosure. I think was it Eric, like $83,000? He's back taxes or something like that.
He owes he's $170,000 in debt, but that's between the racetrack and his studio where he does his radio show out of.
He's lost all his money in a legal battle with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't it with Hulk Hogan? Because that video that came out,
video with his wife, and it kind of went a little ugly. No videos with your wife, Eric. When you get married, you'll lose your fortune.
Nope. Well, I don't have a fortune to lose, but if I'm ever that lucky, no.
Very coincidence with Bubba Love Sponge's radio studio being in debt. I mean, the RPM podcast, thanks to Eric Brennan, we're in debt too. With that, Eric Brennan laying all the money out to buy all this equipment. We appreciate that, Eric.
Yeah, and I think Josh's the one footing the bill to host this thing every week. So
that's good.
So it's
with that in mind, if anybody wants to put their name on the RPM podcast where Josh won't look at it, you can do that.
But yeah, for some reason, I think Tony Stewart, I'm hoping, is going to step in. Tony Stewart does own a lot of racetracks, and he is a big fan of East Bay Speedway, where that Bubba owns. And I just think Tony will never let that track close up, and that he would definitely get involved in that situation. Speaking of Tony Stewart, I think he won like 2 sprint car races this week too.
I think I saw something like that.
Oh yeah, how's Casey Kane making out?
Yeah, he got hurt.
It looks like he's going to be out for a little bit. So, in fact, I know you guys talked about this last week when they were replaying the old Cup race. I saw Casey Kane tweeted a text message he got from a friend saying, "Hey, bud, good to see you back in action." He's like, "No, I'm not. I'm sitting on the couch." But he should be back. I was surprised that wreck didn't make headlines when it happened. It's like we heard about it afterwards when they put out a press release that he was going to have a replacement driver. So
I tell you what, I watched a video of it, and I never like blaming a race car driver, but it was a single car wreck, and what it looked like happened to me, the left front tire caught the inside wall and shot him up into the outside wall, and he went flipping.
That inner berm or that wall or whatever there, yeah, I saw that same thing.
And a happier note for speedways is, do you see I sent the video, all the improvements they're doing at Monadnock Speedway?
Yeah.
They're doing that, fixing it up with the grandstands and everything. Mm-hmm. Hopefully the Modified Tour will go back there again. That's a cool racetrack.
Yeah, that would be nice to see.
Plus, I want to put a shout out to a local racer, too. I turned on MAV TV last night. I don't know how old the race was, if it was this year or last year or whatever, but they were at the sprint cars were at Port Royal Speedway. It was Tony Stewart's sprint car series, and we had a local racer, Kyle Reinhardt, was in it. So I thought that was pretty cool watching him on TV run a sprint car.
Before we get yelled at, was New Egypt or Bridgeport get anything in this weekend?
Bridgeport got canceled, and we did take a little ribbing from Lee Allen that we don't talk about or give the results of Bridgeport. So we will, from here on out, we'll start doing that. New Egypt Speedway did race, though. I think they got their race in. If anybody can check their results.
Josh, any idea what? Lee, Bridgeport got rained out this weekend, Lee.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's aware.
Yeah, he was there. That's a bad thing about a rain out, man. I get up like 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm out in the shop by like 9, getting everything loaded up. I get everything loaded up. I come in the house, take a shower. We leave here by 1 o'clock. We're at the track by 2 o'clock. We were there at 8 o'clock. It was like 8-9 hour day for nothing. It just kills you. The rainouts kill. Rainouts kill everybody. I'm not complaining. I mean, there's an old saying: you win some, you lose some, and some get rained out. Just lately, the rain out 2 weeks in a row. I had to load up all my stuff just for it to get wet on the ride home and put it back in the garage.
I will say the New Egypt website is very hard to navigate.
Yeah,
you're better off on their
too.
Facebook. Yeah, you're better off on their Facebook page.
Okay, so for the this was Saturday, May 11th. The modifieds 30-lap feature. Brian Papiez takes a win over Billy Pouch Jr. Danny Book in third. David Van Horn fourth, and T.J. Lilly in fifth. Brandon Grosso took sixth. Wanted to give him a quick shout out. Let's see, the sportsmen, where are they? The feature. It was only 12 laps. It was shortened due to rain. JT, oh dear God, Eric, you want to take that? JT Terstensky. I know I butchered it.
On the MyLabs, it shows Ryan Haim over JT Terstensky.
Yeah.
We got to get him on. Oh, there's two of them. There's a Will Terskens. Son of a.
Eric, just real quick, when you do go to a track and there's a tough name to pronounce, do you ask another announcer, or do you actually just go down in the pits and ask the guy how he pronounces his name?
If the person who handled registration is available, I'll ask them. And then if I have time, I'll go down and I'll try to get with the driver themselves. Because sometimes straight from the horse's mouth is the best thing when it comes to phonetics and pronunciation of names. Because, I don't know. Like, I can only interpret it so many ways. Like, karting is the worst because I get all these like European style names and stuff, and like my English and their English is not the same thing. So the way you say their names is totally different, and it's I usually write it out phonetically. So that's one of them that I would do, and I'd say it over and over and over again. But Mr. Terzinski, if you're listening, please come on the RPM podcast and tell us how we say your name.
Yes. So JT got the win because Ryan Heim was DQ'd.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. David Burns in second, then Will Terzinski.
God.
Fourth,
off the rails.
Steve Davis. Fifth, Joe Brown. Judge Joe Brown. Don't ask. The Larry's Hot Rods and Harley's Northeast winless sprint cars. 20-lap feature. The winner was Rich Mellor, or Meller. Second was John Bramall. Third, Heidi Hedden. Fourth, Dwayne Nixon. Fifth, Stan Plosky. The Street Stocks 15-lap feature. John Meyer, followed by Bill Leitka. Third, Vern, somehow not DQ'd. Fourth, Billy Roble. And fifth, Brian Ludwig.
One thing I want to mention about Vern real quick, he just made the joke that he didn't DQ'd. He's not driving his own car. He's actually driving somebody else's car.
Oh, okay. That might be why.
He did have engine problems with his own car, and somebody is loaning him a different car. So he has been racing somebody else's car, and he's been finishing very well in it.
I like Vern. I just got to tease him because he got DQ'd so many times.
Another quick thing about the street stocks in New Egypt, I just want to send a shout out to Dennis Seeley. His wife is Janine Seeley. She takes a lot of pictures around the area racetracks and down at Dover and stuff. He's been out of racing for a couple of years because he had a couple of engines blow up in a row, and because of financial things, motors cost a lot of money. He finally got a motor back in the car, and he finally made it back to the track after a couple of years off, and it's good to see him back racing and having fun.
Chris Felber was there too. He finished 8th.
At a 10.
Yeah.
I love Chris, man. He's a true racer, and he loves racing, and
he absolutely
doesn't care if he win or lose as long as he's at the racetrack having fun. He just loves it.
Spider was there too. Look at that. The Lions Construction / Metal Fab Rookie Sportsman 8-lap feature. DJ Hunt with the win. Ryan Godown Jr. Anthony Tramontana Jr. Ron Krasniski, and Zachary Marola. And that's it for New Egypt.
Before we get off air, I have one more feel-good story for a racetrack. We said the ones that were having problems. I sent that article to you guys about Evergreen Speedway in Washington.
Okay.
That track became famous when the Truck Series started racing. The Truck Series went there a couple times,
Okay.
and the track fell.
Even before that, when they had the Winston West out there, for some reason they would draw big names from the East Coast out there as well. I remember Bill Elliott going out there. Richard Petty would go out there. That's where Derek Cope got his start. That track was a big track for the Winston West as well. Back before the trucks even went there, there is rumor saying that they are fixing the place.
No, I got it. I sent the article. It fell into disrepair, Josh, and since then they're coming back to get NASCAR big leagues back there. The state of Washington is giving them $150,000 to get started on their operating budget. It passed last month, so they're good through 2019 to 21. They're going to get $150,000 a year.
Wow!
So they're going to the state of Washington. It's good to see that instead of a town trying to close a racetrack down, they're helping open it back up. So.
And it was a good truck venue.
Yeah, it was a great truck venue.
That's what they want to get, one of the big three leagues back there.
And that was another question I wanted to ask Phil before my power dropped out. I wanted to ask him the question, with the schedules being rearranged in the next couple of years, what track he would like to see the trucks at or go back to, He
did say he would like to have more short tracks, but that would have been nice to hear what track specifically he would have liked to have.
But yeah, just to show how good Evergreen Speedway out on the West Coast was back in the day. If you go on YouTube and Google, Winston West, big Winston West races at Evergreen, the place used to be packed, and it was like I said, Bill Elliott would go out there, like Motorcraft would send him out there to run and compete, and he would race against guys like Derek Cope and stuff. And it was cool watching the East Coast and the West Coast drivers go at it out there. And you gotta YouTube it and look at how big the crowds were back there. And it was weird how they pit stopped, because it's a 5/8 mile track, but it has like a quarter-mile track in the middle, and they used to pit on the quarter mile, so they literally did like a lap around the quarter mile to pit and then go back out on the 5/8. It's pretty cool races to watch. I like watching old races on YouTube, and that's a pretty cool one.
All right, I like that. Anything else you guys want to bring up?
I don't know. Just go to Wall Stadium. Don't sit in front of your computer. And then the next day, piss and moan about it on Facebook. It's bad enough that's what Eric Brennan's going to do.
I know. It's not fair.
We got to do what we learned, because they actually wrote a couple down.
Okay. All right. So let's move along to what have we learned today. I'm going to start with Eric. What did you learn?
Apparently, paydays go really well with beers.
Oh, you just took one of mine.
I actually want to get with Phil and try to see if that actually works. And I also learned that Judge Joe Brown races at New Egypt. Dude, I was giggling at that the whole time. I had to turn my volume off. I don't know why that.
I saw you laughing at yourself over there.
I don't know why that broke me. That totally broke me.
Scott, what did you learn?
Well, Eric already took mine. You can drink a beer with and eat a payday at the same time. I put Eric is on time. That's a rare thing. And I also put that if you have a job down in NASCAR, don't burn bridges or buildings, because you never know when you're going to go back to that old building again.
And I've already done both.
North and south, yeah.
Oh.
Just kidding.
Tim, what did you learn today?
I learned the payday thing. I learned that Scott doesn't pay his electric bill all the time. I learned that you don't Josh Matthews doesn't support the people that support his own podcast.
Oh, yep. Anything else?
No, I'm good, I think, on that. We'll leave on that note.
All right. So today I learned that Phil was a decent welder at 14. I learned that payday is the only candy bar you can eat and drink a beer with. I learned that Scott loved the payday car. I learned that you should not burn bridges or buildings, even if you can spit on the shop. I learned that Tim tries to get up in there. I learned that brakes are a good thing. I learned that we should call it the Pork Roll 150. And I learned that Eric may have a huge cell phone bill this month.
I probably am.
Just so everybody know, like when me and Scott were little, all the big modified races, like it would be the Budweiser 100 or whatever, and every lap they would get, if you led a lap, you got a case of beer. Or if it was like, the Quaker State, you'd get a case of oil for every lap that you led. That's why I said the part about the pork roll. You'd get every lap.
It wouldn't be a bad idea.
You would see like Richie Evans leaving New Egypt Speedway with more beer in the back of his truck than tools. You know, he was
There's the one race of champions. Jamie Tomato led like 155 laps, and they were giving out a full case of beer for every lap. So he had 155 cases of beer. They literally had to go back with go home, unload the race car, go back with the enclosed trailer, and fill the enclosed trailer up to get all the beer home. Yeah. And there were stories too, like where sometimes the leader of the race would get $10 a lap or something, but the guys in second of the lap, like at the Bud Classic at Oswego or something, would get a 12-pack. There was times Richie Evans would ride around for 100 laps in second place because he wanted the beer rather than the $10.
That's true. I've heard that. Another funny story about that is a lot of people don't know it, but me and Scott grew up right down the street from Ron Buck Sr., Ron Buck's Custom Engine Service, and they used to keep Tony Hirschman's car there and Jamie Tomato's car were both in there at different periods of time. And there was one race that Tony Hirschman was somewhere. I don't know where it was. And he must have led a lot of laps because there was a lot of cases of beer in the truck. Well, Ronnie Buck's younger brother was a little bit more mischievous than the rest of them. And somehow between 1 week till the next, quite a few cases of beer ended up disappearing out of the trailer. And when they came to that, what happened to all our beer? We don't know what happened to it all. And kind of got used over the week.
Oh, jeez.
I also remember it being in the summer too, and they left all the beer in the enclosed trailer
It
in
blew
the
up.
summer. The cans blew up all over the inside of the trailer.
Oh, that smell's got to be fun.
And I just want to mention that Jamie Tomato has commented he does want to come on the show. We will
Nice.
get you on. And Scott's had a couple offers. We'll get to you guys. It's just been busy with the tour week, and we'll get to you.
Real quick, too, I did run into Brian Sisko at a Wawa during the week, and he wanted to beat me up because we talked bad about the sportsman division that he loves so much. And I said, Brian, it's not me. It's all Josh. Josh is the one that talks bad about the sportsmen. So,
Fact.
What are you talking about?
He does want to come on also, too.
yeah, Brian wants to come on, too. He'd be great to come on.
I think one night we should do, where are they now type thing with all these guys, the older guys.
Where are they now? The guardrail.
Oh,
On that note, I had to order a pizza because my food got cold, but that's okay. Are we good? I think we're good.
We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
take us out, Eric.
So, on behalf of Phil Gould, fresh off his Truck Series win, and again, thank you to Nancy Riggleman along with Scott for helping make that happen, along with Scott Riggleman, who came back even after the power glitch. Timmy Riggleman is going to be looking for a win with Eric Goodale at the Jersey Shore 150 this Saturday, and our producer and the man who drives the ship for the RPM podcast, Josh Matthews. I'm Eric Brennan. I cannot stress enough, go to Wall this weekend for the Jersey Shore 150, and be sure to get your tickets. Visit wallspeedwayracing.com. Good night, everybody.
Go
Good
to
night,
Wall.
guys.